Good morning, class. It looks like some of you are in a classroom. Anyway, okay. So let's start the class. Please, what I'm teaching is part of exam, so I want you to pay attention.
Sorry.
Kindly mute
Okay, sir.
kindly mute yourselves, unless you want to talk and then you have something to say. Okay. I don't know whether Obed is here.
Yes, Prof. Is I'm here.
Okay. Has Alfred come?
Not yet. He says he is passing by Kolebu, the hospital, so but he will be here soon.
Okay. Okay, so class, welcome back to qualitative research methodology and case study. We will try to do today is to look at these thematic areas in or topics in qualitative research. We will try to understand what qualitative research is, and we'll also try to also take one qualitative research method called case study and try to also understand it. I have to just be honest that because of the break that we had, we are quite behind time. So we may need more sessions. I don't know how we're going to arrange it. Otherwise, we may continue on into another 1 week or 2 weeks after the sessions actually end officially on May 6th. However, we still have to get cover the material and then prepare well for exams. So I'll let the teaching assistant, Mr. Penu, to discuss with you guys whether we'll continue on with maybe 1 or 2 sessions or we'll have multiple sessions in a week, whichever one will work well for us. Anyway, so today we welcome back to our class on research design qualitative techniques. We'll try to discuss qualitative research methodology and case study. My objective today is to look at qualitative research, explain the key features of it, types of qualitative research, and I'll take one of the types of qualitative research case study and then go into in-depth of it. So we are hoping that we can cover that material within the class session time. We are looking at chapter 6 of our book, and then we'll also be using another material, which is called, and the material I'll open it and we'll be using, it's called Qualitative Research Methods, Data Collectors Field Guide. And it tries to bring some direction on qualitative research and what you should look out for when you're on the field collecting data. It's a very good 13-page manual, which is a guide for all qualitative researchers. And I'll quickly go through some of the key issues. You'll be given an assignment at the end of the session, which is based on that one in chapter 6 of the book. So the assignment that you'll be doing, the question one of the assignments will draw from what I just mentioned, the material I just mentioned. I'll try and make it available. Oh, but if you look at my folder, there is a folder I've created called case study examples, a case study and qualitative study examples. In that one, there's a paper, we'll be using all those papers there to study, so you may share it with the class later as we go, as and when I use them. And then secondly, there's one called Qualitative Research Methods Overview. That's the one I'm talking about. That is, we'll use it to do a study. I'm hoping that, please don't ask questions that are not relevant. Let's try to get as much material as possible so that we're not derailed. Now, this is a story that we call the Qualitative Research Preamble. It helps you to understand what qualitative research is. It starts by saying that once lived a man in a country with no food trees. A scholar, he spent a great deal of time reading. He often came across references to food. The descriptions enticed him to undertake a journey to experience food for himself. He went to a marketplace and inquired where he could find the land of of fruit. After mass searching, he located someone who knew the way. After a long and arduous journey, he came to the end of the directions and found himself at the entrance of a large apple orchard. It was springtime, and the apple trees were in blossom. The scholar entered the orchard and expectantly um, pulled off a blossom and put it in his mouth. Okay. He liked neither the texture of the flower nor its taste. He quickly went to another tree and another blossom, and sampled another blossom, then another and another. Each blossom, though quite beautiful, was distasteful to him. He left the orchard and went to his home country, reporting to his fellow villagers that the fruit was a much overrated food. Okay, so what do you think happened to this particular scholar? It comes from Halcon's Enquiry Parables, and the parables, sorry, and it's in a book by Patton. Patton writes on qualitative research and other research techniques. So, class, what do you think happened to him? Those of you can give us an example or type it in the chat room. What do you think happened to the scholar? He entered the orchard, peeled off. The case study says that he went into a place. It was springtime and the apple trees were in blossom. So as a scholar, he pulled off a blossom and put it in his mouth. Okay. Adai, you can go ahead.
Hello, sir. I I think blossoms, in the first place, blossoms are not apple or they are not fruit. So he tasting blossoms in anticipation that they were fruit, the fruits was a wrong thing to do. That's why he got a wrong description of how fruits are.
Okay. What you're saying is quite true. It's quite true because he actually went there. Look at the context of the place. He went to an orchard, which was the right place. But he went there springtime. In springtime, when the trees are in blossom, so their leaves are shining, and the flower is what he tasted. So he saw a flower and thought that the flower was rather the as you said, the flower was rather the apple, but rather what he had eaten. And that's quite interesting. The context was right, the timing was wrong, and he actually took a flower. So he interpreted the context and then the flower as the context being right, the flower being the apple, because he thought that whenever you go, you see the flower will be the same thing that will be there. He didn't look at the fact that at different times of the year, this same tree can give you something else. And because he had not experienced it before, he was had led to a wrong interpretation. And that is what actually happens in qualitative research. Context was taken into consideration, but the timing was not taken into consideration. So, unable to recognize the difference between spring blossom and summer fruit, the scholar never realized that he had not experienced what he was looking for. And that tells you how limited his view was based on the timing he had gone there. Good. Now, what it means is that in qualitative research, scholars try to study things in a natural setting. So that was done. An attempt to make interpretations of it, the phenomena, or interpret the phenomenon within in which in terms of the meanings people bring to it. So you had been told that, oh, when you go to the place, you find a tree, and the tree will have a flower, something on it. And what that thing that you find on it is what we call the apple, because an apple tree, and you think that all that you just generates the apple. But he had not realized that the other information he had not received. And the meaning that he associated with it was based on what he had learned from the people, and that was limited. Qualitative researchers, whenever they are doing the research, they try to focus on things in terms of the phenomenon, it's happening in its natural settings, and understanding all the natural settings. What the gentleman failed to understand in the natural settings that he didn't look at time. That in that natural setting, time tends to change the way nature responds to the particular tree. At certain summertime, that particular apple tree will give you a fruit. At winter time, at springtime, it will give you a flower. So because he couldn't appreciate everything in natural settings, the meanings and that he brought to the phenomenon was a little bit erroneous. And that led to the wrong interpretation. So qualitative researchers are expected to understand their phenomenon, but don't take the phenomenon out of the context, place it within the context that it happens in. Understand what influences that context, what are the influencing factors, so that you can be able to generate the proper meanings or appropriate meanings to the phenomenon. So, in attempting to make sense of the or interpret the phenomena in terms of the meanings people bring to them, it means that people's view could actually skew the interpretation. So, if you are not very careful, qualitative research is actually subject to the meanings that people bring to the phenomenon, the meanings. And if you are wrong season for tasting the flour. Okay, the sample you took gave the perception of all the food tasted like and shaped his results, and that's he shared with others. Okay, he concluded generally based on the individual experience with little or no information on the specifics. Okay. But what specifics were you looking for? He was looking for specifics on maybe timing concerning the natural settings. So let's look at it. Well, what is fruit? What is your understanding of fruit? His understanding of fruit was built based on what people had told him, because the Bible's the writer of the preamble says that he had asked a lot of people and they told him that this is what it is, go to this place. So that information again was shaped by what people had told him. And then what is an apple? He had actually not been told what an apple would look like, but I think what he had been told was it's a product coming from the tree, or it's a produce of the tree. So anything that was going to be a produce of the tree was what he thought he would have found and called the apple. Where was the fruit? When did the scholar go there? The scholar went there at springtime instead of summertime. So he actually didn't get the right fruit that he was looking for. And that lack of information concerning timing affected the interpretation. So one thing that you could ask is that what meanings exist concerning the fruit? Maybe the people who shared the meanings with him never added the fact that the fruit is also timing dependent in terms of its growth. They didn't get that part. Okay, what factors influence these meanings? Okay. And then lastly, who has these meanings? So in qualitative research, you are trying to study a phenomenon, but you have to make sure that the three other dimensions of the phenomenon are captured well. What you are going to do in the qualitative research is that you are going to appreciate that where is the phenomenon taking place? When are you going to study the phenomenon? What is happening in that particular context in which the phenomenon is taking place? What meanings exist concerning it, and who are those who hold those meanings? Are there different subjective meanings? Are there different perceptions of the meanings? Are there different perceptions of this particular phenomenon? And have you captured it all in its rich nature so that you can be able to build a holistic picture of how people think about this particular phenomenon? So that's what you need to do. You, the researcher, have to try to note that the qualitative research process is an inquiry that is grounded in the assumption that people or the individuals construct social reality in the form of meanings and interpretations. That social reality was constructed for the scholar by what he had done, the interactions he had done with people. It constructed his understanding of what to expect concerning what was an apple tree or an apple itself. And those meanings and interpretations tend to be transitional and tend to kind of create constructions with us that tend to be transitional and situational, or tend to give us certain particular results or outputs that are transitional and situational, meaning that even the interpretation that you may come up with concerning a phenomenon as a quantitative researcher, you need to be to acknowledge, modest enough to acknowledge the fact that this interpretation is subjective. It can be based on time. It's also based on context, so it's also situational. But that if the context changes, if the situation changes, it could actually perceptions of the people will change. Can you imagine that we are going for elections, and just before elections, a government announces and tells you that he's bringing reduction in school fees, starting from that particular time, that 1 week before elections, and tells you that the students are going to be refunded for any other school fees that are being paid above the amount that government has stipulated. Now, if that's a particular a strategy or intervention placed in by government, can even skew or have an effect on people's views or perception concerning the government, even in the election that is going to take place. So what we are trying to point out advice is that the information that is given to, or the information that the researcher may come to know, or may try to research on, or glean from the society, or glean from people doing the data collection, the researcher needs to appreciate that that particular information is situational and transitional, and that certain things can even change the perception concerning it. Okay. So in qualitative research, we have certain building blocks. There's a phenomenon that's occurring in the natural settings, and there are people who experience that particular phenomenon. Those people have also constructed a view of reality. And that view of reality is what you want to unravel in the qualitative research process, to be able to understand what meanings and interpretation do you have about the reality. But in doing so, you yourself have to appreciate the fact that whatever findings that come out is transitional and situational. That means that it's subjective, it's transitional and situational. Okay. Now let's try to do another example. What do you see? I know you see chess, but don't say that. So don't tell me the obvious. What do you see? Yes, class. What do you see?
Apart from the furniture, I see a sculpture made with swords.
Okay.
People watching that.
So you try to give it you try to give it certain label. You said there's furniture and a sculpture. That's what you have seen. I hear somebody saying he sees a throne. So that sculpture that you see, somebody has qualified that it's not just a sculpture, it's a throne. So the word throne tells you the functionality of that sculpture. So you have seen a sculpture, but that's the functionality. Now, it means that the first person who answered actually described what he's seeing. The next person who is actually answering is telling us the function of what he's seeing. That's quite interesting. So the one person is focused on function, another person is focusing on description. Yes, any other viewpoints?
Prof, I see a work of art.
You see a work of art. Okay, a work of art. Okay, it's also description. Okay.
Prof, I think that even though all of them are furniture, like things that you can sit on, they are in different settings. So the made of swords is used as a throne, Game of Thrones. In the same setting, you can't use any of the
What
other
is Game of Thrones?
Oh, I mean the throne made with swords. So that could be used for in the particular setting. That is the movie. That is not the normal throne that an tomb for somebody will sit on, but in the setting that was used to depict the authority and the power of the king over there. And then the other side, one can be used in your living room, one can be used in the office. I mean, so different settings, even though they are all things that you can sit on, they are used differently in different places and settings.
Okay, thank you very much. So you are also talking about functionality, and you have gone, because of your knowledge and experience, you see how qualitative research is. You have gone further to even interpret that throne, that thing you see there is an iron throne from Game of Thrones, and I've seen Eliezer confirming with you. So you have gone further because of the knowledge you have. So you brought your prior experiences to interpret the data. The gentleman who just said that you can see a sculpture, was pointing out that he doesn't know the Game of Thrones. In my view, he might not know the Game of Thrones, but so you cannot able to link it. So one thing about qualitative researcher, you, the researcher, you bring your own biases to the research. You bring your own interpretations to the research. And sometimes you are not very careful. You will not hear what the people are saying, but you'll be saying what you want to say. It's not wrong for you to bring, you are going to influence in qualitative research by your own prior biases and perspectives. But one of the things that you should always realize is that when is it about what the people are saying and when is it about you? So that you can be able to sometimes remove yourself and then report it as the people are saying it, as much as you can be able to interpret it by what the people are saying, than rather you try to project what you think about something. Okay, very interesting. Is there any other perspective? What else do you see?
Hello, Prof.
Yes, please.
I What I'm seeing, I think that there are many furniture, including what they describe, but there are eyes on one of them other than the rest. There are other furnitures here, but there is a particular furniture that people's eye are on that one. When you see at the other side of the sculpture or the throne they are talking of, you see a woman admiring it, looking seriously. So I was rather looking at it from that angle, that there are many chairs, but there's a particular chair that people's eyes are on it and they are admiring it.
Okay, thank you very much. You said a woman is admiring it. It shows how much information you can see. Yes, any other person has a different view. Okay.
Prof.
Yes.
And also the woman standing by the throne made with salt is from royalty. So you can conclude by saying that throne
What
depicts
do you mean is from royalty? What
it's
who is that?
Queen that's the Queen
Good.
Elizabeth.
So identify the subject very well. That's one thing that
Okay.
you are all doing. You're not actually identifying the subjects very well. So that's the queen, and the queen is standing
Yeah,
by the Game of
it's
Thrones.
bound by the throne.
By the
So
iron,
it
iron of
depicts
Thrones.
it
Okay.
depicts royalty. That makes this throne this chair in quotes different from the rest. So I could say that this throne this chair is more powerful than the other chairs
Okay.
because
Now,
of the
one issue
link
that,
to royalty.
okay, thank you. One issue that all of you are having right now is that because there's no research question, all you are answering is by what you see in the data, not what it should mean. Somebody is saying that it means royalty. Somebody is saying that it depicts something. Because there's no research question, you are not focusing your data, that your analysis. And that's something I want you to learn for the future. Because we're talking about data analysis in maybe subsequent sessions. One thing is that if you don't have a research question, the data will look very plenty to you and it can be very divergent. That's why everybody's all over the place, saying different things to all in this particular case. But now let's try to put some focus to it. So one thing we can say is that we do not just sit because we find a seat or a chair. Our seat has meaning. Some chairs are reserved in society, like you saw in the Game of Thrones chair or Iron Throne. And in some sitting also imbibes some culture. For example, you may not sit on until society has given way. For example, in that example, like when grace is said, or when certain people in the leadership have sat down, then you can then sit down. To be able to sit, you need to internalize the taboos or the context, the culture. Why do we do why we do what we do, or in our view or meaning? So you cannot just get up and say that you are everything that was the chair and everything that was placed there is automatic in terms of its interpretation is automatic. You have to understand what are you looking out for? What is your objective? Is it about sitting? Is it about trying to understand the ethics of sitting or the politics of sitting? If that is the case, then what are you learning from it? Good. So qualitative researchers can have multiple interpretations of subjective interpretations of phenomenon. But the best, the one which should be of more prime or should be of more necessity to the qualitative researcher is the one that focuses on answering a particular research objective or answering a particular research question that you are trying to, that research question or objective is trying to underpin or is underpinning the research process. So you can't just get up and just interpret what is guiding you for interpretation. Otherwise, the data will be very divergent and blunt, like we just saw. Okay. What does qualitative researchers do? Qualitative researchers describe, I saw you guys describe, I told you that some of your answers are describing, some of them are going beyond describing to actually be determined by mentioning the name of the name of the sculpture that you saw. So you're actually just not just describing, you're telling us what it is. Okay. So what qualitative researchers do, like they like to describe variations in a context or in a phenomenon. They like to explain the possible relationships between variables in a phenomenon. What are the possible relationships? And then to describe the individual experiences and sometimes the group norms that influence a phenomenon. Sometimes people have had individual experiences about a phenomenon, and you can be able to describe them qualitatively. Now, because of the fact that they are based, qualitative research are based on description, and it's also text-based. what you see is that most of the instruments for doing qualitative research is very, very flexible, iterative style of questioning and categorizing the responses. So most of the feedback are placed within the context in which people can easily be able to look at the text and say that what is the person saying. If you transcribe, what does the person tell you? And the questionnaire they develop is very, very open-ended most of the time. Sometimes we can have some semi-structured questionnaire that's a little bit, some of the questions are close-ended, like which of these schools did you go to? So it will give you the name of the schools. But in the open-ended one, you have it very open. What school did you attend? Then you yourself will tell the person. Now, what happens in qualitative research is that we are trying to create a room for people to share what they know and tell us the stories about what is occurring concerning a phenomenon. So at the end of the day, qualitative research is very textual in nature. So the end of typing and writing it in the description in the language that can be understood. And the type of data we use is interviews, observation, documents, and audiovisual. Interviews being that you are interviewing the potential subjects of the phenomenon or people who are working on the phenomenon, or doing something related to the phenomenon. So you end up interviewing them, and that so in the interview you have questions that you are asking and they respond in their own words. Then you also have focus group discussions where you can also interview the people in groups to be able to get the understanding of at the group level what are the commonalities concerning the phenomenon. And you can compare it to another group. So in my scenario, I've seen myself interviewing students and people on entrepreneurship, and then another set of people to interviewing another set of people on entrepreneurship. In mine, I focus on male, and the other person focus on female. In another study, we put them together in one room and differentiated them by years of operation. So those who have worked for 3 years, we talk to both male and female in the focus group discussion. And then those who have worked, be able to go beyond the 3 years and now in their fifth or fourth year, or fifth or sixth year, we also talk to them in a group. So we can be able to get experiences that are different and then compare. So that's for the interview. Then you also have observation where you go and observe in person, or you try to make sure that whatever is happening, you are participating in it. So your observation is participant observation. If you're not participating in it, you're just observing, you are a non-participant observer. Okay. Then you also got documents and text, the ones which are publicly accessible or available. You are able to get access to them and use them for your work. So it's very easy for you to share that one. Those are documents which are publicly available. But sometimes some organizations that you interview, you may come across some of their data that is held privately, so you cannot share. Good, but you may be able to use them in your work. Then I've got audiovisual, picking information from Facebook, Twitter, social media content, and all forms of media content. You're able to build a profile concerning the phenomenon that you are studying. Okay. But whatever it is, as I said earlier, when a researcher is carrying out qualitative research, he should be aware of the biases and orientations he brings to the research, because those can influence the research process. Okay. Any question on what qualitative research is whilst you go into the different dimensions? Okay, there's no question. Now the key aspects
Well,
of
there's a question.
okay.
My question is, you said
Please go ahead.
You were talking of how researchers should be careful how they will allow biases to. I want to know whether there is a way of detecting whether a particular research is biased. Can through the data collection, can somebody know that this was biased the way you pick the data?
So we'll come to that, but that is what you are talking about here right now. Qualitative research takes into account viewpoints and patterns from the field that are different because of the different subjective perspectives and social backgrounds related to them. Because you are talking about something which has subjectivity in it, you have to talk to multiple people at multiple times. So we draw data from different people, from different social backgrounds, from different perspectives, so that we can build a rich picture. So that can help reduce the biasness. For example, that scholar that talked to them, he talked to only some specific people, and they gave their understanding about what a fruit is. But if you are going ahead to talk to other people who have experienced at winter time, he would have a winter or a summertime as compared to the springtime. They would have realized that, oh, the product, the tree itself yields in summer, and in springtime you will not get what you're looking for. It would have advised him.
Okay.
So different perspectives from different backgrounds tend to help. Let's look at an example here. Supposing somebody is doing a study on gender and micro enterprises. One question goes to the field to ask that, do you own this enterprise? And that question has a lot of different perspectives in it, because it all depends on what you mean by own. Ownership enjoys several meanings in Ghana. Do you mean the one who makes key managerial decisions concerning the enterprise? Or the one who is actually sitting there or day by day enhancing, conducting the operations of the enterprise? So somebody can make key decisions, but he may not be the person doing the operational work in the enterprise. Okay. Then you can also ask in terms of ownership. What do you mean by ownership? The inheritance is ownership. Gift is an ownership. And then partnership is an ownership. Which of them are you more interested in? Or are you trying to look at all these possible scenarios? Okay. So these are the things that can influence it. So the interpretations could differ depending on the answers to these questions. So in effect, ownership has several meanings. Okay. The next thing is that you, the researcher, has to also be aware of your biases. We mentioned it right now. And then, meaning that the researcher should know, sometimes we tell the researcher to declare whether there's any biases he may have, or or give us his background information so that we can understand whether he brings anything that can influence the type of study that he's doing. The subjectivity of research and those being studied becomes part of the research process. So your reflexivity of the researcher and the research process matters, because if you are not reflective of what you are going through, you cannot be even able to identify whether you have been able to be very holistic in the view that you are trying to portray, or be able to look at the diverse perspectives that could exist. So sometimes self-reflection during the process is important. I have done that quite a number of times, even as a researcher. So it helps you to aware of your own orientations and biases and experiences, and sometimes try to leave the personalization of the data and come to much more of the holistic interpretation of the data. Because you are too close, you may interpret everything based on what you have experienced. But if you step out, you can get other people's rich experiences to influence the data. Okay. Then qualitative research itself has an emergent design. It means that as people ask questions, they get to know more and they can adapt the questionnaire to suit what the new information they are picking. So usually qualitative research doesn't use rigid designs as you see quantitative, where the researcher is stuck to a set of questions and they are so fixed and that they are not giving room to be able to get other viewpoints. Okay. Is there a question? Lastly, the researcher also has to carry out the research in a naturalistic environment. It's much more beneficial. That means that you are trying to get real world situations as they unfold naturally. So you want to try to make sure that can you get the same setting when the thing occurs, and then try to make sure that you can do the study within that particular setting. How, if you are trying to do study healthcare quality, you should be in the hospital sector or that particular hospital and study the day-to-day activities to be able to judge quality. So in such a scenario, you are not going to manipulate it, you're not going to control, you're going to allow the data to play on its own, and you can study it and then write your report. Okay. So naturalistic inquiry means that we are studying the things in their real world situations as the manifold naturally. We are trying as much as possible not to manipulate or control the way we are trying to study. Emergent design flexibility means that we are open to inquiry as understanding deepens and situations change. And then we are also trying to avoid a rigid design. Qualitative research also draws on qualitative data. So you are going to use observations, interviews, audiovisual, and document. Those are the dynamic four or the top four forms of qualitative data that we use. Then you also have context sensitivity. You have to understand that whatever you are studying happened in the context. And that means that you have to appreciate the social and the historical and temporal nature of the context. Certain things that you study, some of the topics you are studying, you have to place the context to get a picture of even the nature of competition, how it was affecting the firm to make a particular decision. Okay. So when we say context sensitivity, it means that you have to think about how certain constructions or certain structures in the society can influence what you're trying to study. For example, when the scholar went there, what he left out in terms of the history, if you are studying the history of the town, you would have realized that the thing has generates or gives blossoms into a flower in the springtime, and then the fruit is actually born from the same plant in the summertime. If you were able to look into the history and see patterns of occurrence like this, you could have shaped the type of study the scholar was going to do. So your findings of the study have to always look into the society in which the study was done. The historical perspectives that could exist that can influence the perspectives that you have obtained, and then the temporal nature of the context. Okay, let's continue. So there are differences between the qualitative and quantitative research. Qualitatives would like to explore a phenomenon or describe it. Quantitative would like to confirm a hypothesis about a phenomenon. Qualitative like to use flexible questionnaires, iterative style of eliciting and categorizing response to questions so they can do follow-up questions and they have got opportunity to engage in a different way because they want to be flexible. So they use open-ended or semi-structured interviews. Then quantitative is more rigid style of collecting data. They have got their questions and their possible answers, and they tell you that which of these do you agree with. Okay, but the semi-structured approach of qualitative research allows you to draw in from in-depth interviews, focus group discussions, and participant observation. So another thing that qualitative research does is that it tries to describe variation, explain relationships by describing them earlier, and describe experiences that people will have. So most of the qualitative research questionnaires have open-ended approach or move towards being done in a way that when you ask a question, you can allow the client or the participant to share his experiences in a way that can be able to make your work rich. But you also have to be careful, otherwise you may have a respondent that doesn't end. It will keep on going on and going on and going on. So it has to be done within certain limits. Okay. Quantitative studies like to use closed-ended questionnaires. So it's very difficult and with little room for feedback from the people that he's responding, he's asking them questions about. So the respondents are not drawn into the study to be part of the study. They just have to just give their answers and then they can move on. So you see in quantitative studies, quite a number of people will just drop a question. I think maybe I've seen a supervisor do something before or lecturer do something before. They just give a question and they ask you strongly agree or disagree or neutral. You just have to take what they want and they collected a critical mass of responses and go and analyze it. We also mentioned that qualitative research uses text-based and then the researcher should be aware of his own biases. But with quantitative research, there's a belief that there is a distance between the researcher and his subjects, and there's an emphasis on the research plan. So there's not much ambiguity of what is expected. So when you say distance between the researcher and the subjects, there's less opportunity of influence, which qualitative research likes to do. So all the impact like the distance helps the research becomes more focused on the whatever it was supposed to just find, and that is all. So you, the researcher, believe that you are distant from the subject, and the subject is giving you viewpoints based on what he is honestly expressed as an honest answer to the questions. Qualitative is quite different. They appreciate the subjectivity in the study and try to make sure that they make it as easy as possible for people to participate in the study. So the researcher is aware of his own biases and experiences he brings into the study. And that one can shape the decisions that he takes in the study. Okay. Any question on the differences?
Doug, please, on the difference between the qualitative and quantitative, the instruments that are used in data collection, there are instances where people are conducting the research. It's a qualitative research, but the instrument they will use in getting the data is using questionnaires. But here we have questionnaires for quantitative. So is it right using the questionnaires for a qualitative research?
Okay, so I think you have a these are all questionnaire from open-ended and closed-ended. All of them use questionnaire. Questionnaire is just a paper that has questions on it. But what type of questions are you asking is what then differentiates qualitative and quantitative. Do you understand?
Okay.
So even if you are going to ask question that is going to be open-ended, like, so what do you think about the program in business school? Very open-ended. It still has to be on paper.
Okay.
Good. But the same quantitative question will just tell you, maybe you have 4 variables describing from the literature. These are the 4 variables that describe students' views about a school. 1, I'm not happy. 2, I'm happy. 3, neutral. So you can ask questions that can let you answer these based on it. So you take one dimension. In terms of teaching, to what extent do you agree about on the scale of happiness? In terms of this, to what extent do you agree? So you're not getting any qualitative data in the sense of you describing why you are choosing an answer like this. It will just ask you for the answers and go and quantitatively measure them.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions? So can I go ahead? Okay, I'm going ahead. Okay, so there are different types of qualitative research. In fact, there are about 4 types. The last one is knowledge theory, which I've dropped because we discussed that one at the PhD level. But there's phenomenology, which is trying to describe one or more individuals' experiences of a phenomenon. For example, the experience of a death of a loved one. Phenomenology is where somebody's experiences about going through a phenomenon is captured. And I'll give a little bit of explanation about it as we go on. Then we also have ethnography. Ethnography is when you try to study a phenomenon from the cultural perspective. So what are the cultural characteristics that tend to influence this issue? So describe the cultural characteristics of a group of people and to describe the cultural scenes that underpin the phenomenon. Somebody will ask you that I'm doing a study on behavior that contribute to deforestation in communities. So I want to see the role of culture in it. He may do a ethnography study, spend some time, about 8 months, studying the people's culture and how some cultural practices lead to deforestation. Then you also have case study. Case study is a study of a bounded system. And that bounded system can be defined by time, an event, by a place, or an issue. So somebody can do a case study on a bank branch, or a case study on a telecom company, or a case study on an issue. So in case studies, what you try to do is that you have a real world instance of a phenomenon and you're trying to study it by collecting data about it to be able to understand or describe or explain what is occurring within that phenomenon. Whilst phenomenology is more reflective, case study takes an approach of trying to look at contemporary issues and describing what is occurring there. So let's take them one by one. In phenomenology, we have got two types, transcendental and then humanistic. A humanistic phenomenology interprets people's lived experience through text. So you try to look at what does the text say about the person we are trying to talk about. So you may use things like where text can be found, documented accounts of the experience this the person went through, tweets, diary notes, diaries, information placed in the diaries in terms of notes he has made or stories he has written or notes he has made in terms of put it down concerning the phenomenon you want to study. It may include blogs, tweets, and documented accounts of the experience. A question like, what are the doctoral students' supervision experience as interpreted through their blogs, chats, and tweets? That would be humanistic phenomenology. You are looking at their lived experiences as they're being supervised by their supervisors. But you're capturing that not from their interviewing the students, but from what they have expressed through their blogs and chats and tweets around the course. Then the transcendental phenomenology, which describes the meaning of one or several individuals of their lived experiences of a concept or a phenomenon. It aims to describe the essence or the essential elements of their experience. What is the experience of being supervised in a doctoral program at Liking University? In ethnography, your decision here is to try to look at the description of people from a cultural perspective in order to study a phenomenon. So you, the researcher, goes to live in the place and you study and observe and interact with the participants in their real world context. So you have to capture some of the cultural characteristics of the people and the cultural scenes and use that one to explain the phenomenon that you are trying to unravel or unearth. For example, understanding the evolving nature of cybercrime and criminality in the slum communities in Accra. The cybercrime and criminality is on the rise. So what are the characteristics that lead to the factors that influence or enable and constrain this rise in cybercrime? Good. And to what extent is the cultural context being part of the issue? So the person can go and live in the cultural context of it and try to explore that dimension. The last one is the case study. Case study is a study of a bounded system, which can be an individual, it can be a group or an activity or a process. So when you perform intensive analysis on that bounded system, then you get a case. So say the case study of car bank, so that the whole story is about car bank or the phenomenon, whatever issue you're studying concerning car bank. It could be their digital marketing strategies. It could be their measures that they have been taking place. And to be able to understand these dimensions very well, it's good to appreciate that qualitative researchers need to always keep in mind that they are trying to interpret the world within a particular context, and the context shouldn't be separated from the meanings that they are trying to associate with the world. So that meanings you are given, it will happen to be transitional and situational. That is very, very important. Okay. So we are going to look at case study into detail and try to appreciate what are the different types of case studies and what we see as an example as a case study. Before I do that, I just want to know whether in describing phenomenology, in describing ethnography, is there anything that you want to look into? Okay, there's no question, so I'm going to continue. Good. Ada, you don't have any question? Oh,
no, Prof.
Okay, thank you very much. Joseph has a question. Joseph, let's flow.
Hello, Prof. Please.
I wanted to ask this question. With the current state of, I don't know, it's related to media. So I want to use that example. With the current state of media, how media arrest of journalists and other harassment and intimidation by journalists, some people have the view that is the gradual process of legalizing the criminal libel law that was repealed some years ago by during President Kofo's time. But so with this view and with this current incident happening, can you do something about it and you can determine it as an ethnography?
Latter part of your question, just I couldn't get it.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that right now we are experiencing.
I know the first part I got it, but the latter part. So you said, does it mean what?
So maybe I can pick this current situation and compare it to maybe some of the incidents that happened during this Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's time and make an analysis and call it maybe an ethnography or something else. That's what I want.
No. Okay, that would not be ethnography.
Okay.
Ethnography has a study culture, and you have to go into the setting and sit with them. So the past one, you can't go and do that one. So you do see it. Now, if you are going to interview journalists about what it was like being a journalist in Nkrumah's time, so now it's about lived experience. You get it?
Yes, Doc, I get it.
So now you are moving towards transcendental phenomenology.
Okay. Okay.
But let me just tell you, the biography that you see, that somebody writes an a biography of somebody, it's actually a lived experience. Don't you see it? So biographies are usually coming out of phenomenological research. Do you understand it?
Yes, Doc.
Now, the current journalists, if you just want to interview them or what is happening there, that one is a contemporary issue. So look at this. I think I don't have it here, but this one thing about case studies that there's a need to do a spotlight or microscopic evaluation of selected social factors or processes. So something is happening in society right now. You just want to narrow down one and give it a spotlight. So and do that study on it. Then you can actually do a case study on the current media landscape in Ghana. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, Doc, I understand.
But if it was about the lived experience you are trying to reflect on, like being a journalist in Rwanda, if I watch the movie Hotel Rwanda, that would be more of a phenomenology. However, let's say Ukraine is taking Ukraine grapple is too far. I want something that's more interesting in Ghana. Okay, you know this chieftaincy issues that's happening between. That's even true about chieftaincy. I can even use another example. Okay, good. Those of you who know about share butter in the northern region, share butter, we have pickers who pick the share and then they give it to others to be able to process it, and then they call aggregators come and buy it. The shares are usually picked by women and children. And then they pick it and then they aggregate it and then they are able to sell. Now that lifestyle has a cultural underpinning, even in Burkina Faso, in Ghana, and then in Nigeria. Somebody wants to be able to improve the livelihoods of the women in the share value chain. So he can do either a case study or ethnography research. Ethnography research, he wants to understand how culture empowers this woman or disempowers this woman in the value chain. Because the men are seen as those who are the higher end. Men are the buyers usually, and women are the pickers. but the work is very, very difficult down there. So you want to see how culture empowers or disenfranchises women in this particular space. So in that scenario, you are actually going to stay with them about 8 months and go and do the picking sum. So you are doing participant observation. You are there with them, going through the field, going to up and down, seeing it. Where do you move it? And even try to know, okay, the 4 northern regions or the 5 northern regions. Well, how does the produce move and it gets exported? If some of them are exported, how does it? Because some of them are put on Amazon and sold. How does it get to Amazon? You take your time, you go through, study them with the culture, understand them, all the issues there. You are doing ethnography research. But I can go to that same community and go and stay with the family and listen to a grandmother tell me her story about from the 80s when she started picking up to about the Rollins time up to Kufuor's time and try to document the account. That can be a lived experience. I'll use phenomenology. I can go to that same community and then try to understand that what if we want to bring intervention and give you mobile phones, and how can the mobile phones empower you to do the work? So we want to look at how is your communication practices. Case study. I study the communication practices among them. Selected social factors. Do you understand me?
Yes, Doc.
Good. So you appreciate how the studies can be done. Somebody is asking if you're doing ethnography, how many people interview you? You are living in the community, so I'm talking about how many people to interview. You are with them. If you are talking about in general qualitative research, I remember my supervisor used to talk about the fact that for a phenomenon of interest, you are talking about between 15 to 25, depending on how detailed information they can give you. So the richness of the information that matter, not the number of people you are counting. We'll get to about selecting participants later. Somebody wants to jump and go to see my exam question. Hey, boys make well. You might not appear. You want to see my exam question anyway, or you have received a vision on it already. Okay, Imoro, I come to give us some feedback on share butter.
Yes, please, Prof. Talking about or using the share butter as an example. What if the share butter is also seasonal? What if at the time you are conducting the research?
Very, very, very good question. Very, very, very good. What happens is that the woman out of the season, the women go and do soya bean and other products so that they can make their livelihoods. So you have to go at the right time.
Okay.
Yeah, you are very right.
Thank you.
You know more about the industry, the shea butter industry.
Yes, please. Yes, I know.
Give your details. Give your details to Uber. We are doing a study in the northern region. Maybe we can with you in the future.
Okay, no problem. Then after the class, I'll link up with.
Okay. Somebody is asking why is he not coming to Kumasi? I won't come to Kumasi. Kumasi don't have shea butter. Anyway, let's continue. Okay, so this is like a case study. Now, one thing about a case study is that a case study is a study of a bounded system. And one thing about the bounded system is that in a case study, there is always it's accompanied by a case description and a case-based themes. Case description explains the context. Case-based themes talks about the issues you want to discuss. So this paper is about mobiles and micro trading. The question is, how does mobiles impact on micro trading activities of market women or market traders? So the first part is the case description, explaining who the woman is, giving the context. The next 2 other paragraphs, it talks about the case-based themes, the issues about the phenomenon. So you cannot, remember when we talk about qualitative research, if you are presenting a case, you cannot strip the case from its context. So the phenomenon you want to study is mobiles and micro trading. Don't just go there. You need to tell us what the context is so that we can appreciate the context in trying to understand the phenomenon. For example, Auntie Akosia is a tomato retail trader. She has junior high school level education and she has been working as a tomato retailer since June 2008. So it tells you her educational level. It tells you the business she's in and tells you how much years she has been in it. So you can talk about the fact that she has got some experience in the area. that is established in the first two paragraphs. Number two, it tells you she's a retail trader. That means that she is in the middle of the supply chain, a wholesaler, a retailer, and then maybe the consumer. Or sometimes you can have an itinerant trader, the ones who stand by the train stations and the roadside. But since Abaye says we should remove them, AMA says we should remove them, let's remove them and put that to the retailer straight to the consumer. So she says that AA works with Jane. It's telling you the supply, the kind of structure she has in her business. Every sentence has a meaning. That's one thing you have to know about case. Every sentence has a meaning. AA works with Jane, who serves as an intermediary between her and the farmers in the villages. So that means that there's a structure in the business. There are suppliers who supply to the woman. Okay. Jane buys the tomatoes at wholesale prices from the farmers, and A retails them on the market. So that means that after buying from the farmers, it in the villages has to be kind of shipped or moved or transported to the marketplace where A is sitting. So Jane is the one who goes to the farmers to go and engage. So Jane is an employee of AA. That tells you that this is a well set up business or fairly structured business. There is division of labor. Can you see that? Class, can you see it?
Yes.
Please, those of you can chat. Just let me know by chatting. So when I ask a question, you can't unmute yourself. Just chat with me. Okay. Good. So what you see here is that there's a structure. That same small paragraph here has a lot of deep meaning in there. Prior to owning a mobile phone, phenomenon. So the background was given to us, the context was given another phenomenon. So whenever you look at a good case study, always look at where is the context and where is the phenomenon? Where is the context? Where is the phenomenon? A very good case study will always have the context and then the phenomenon. Context and then the phenomenon. Okay, so this is one. Then it goes on to talk about the issue that led to her to buy a phone. Then it talks about some things from her own viewpoint. She opined that most of my customers are working class, meaning they do not have much time to come to the market. I therefore call or text my customers periodically and ask them if they need of any tomatoes, and I deliver them at their offices. It's telling you something that she's doing. Now, Jane is saying that she can text. Where can we believe her? Because she told us that she has junior high school level education. If she didn't do that, it will be asking a question that what assumption are we trying to? Are we assuming that all market women can read and write? No. Because you want to avoid assumptions and biases. Remember the lady who asked about biases and assumptions. You have to give rich information so that we can avoid those biases. Because you cannot, if you say the woman can text and you didn't give us this background, somebody can ask the question that, is it possible? Are you sure that all the market women can text? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So this information here gives its validity of the data. The context you are provided here helps us to understand and see that the data that we have or the information we are gaining is valid and it's reliable. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, she's able to deliver them. She's doing customized services. I can believe that because she even has customized, even has Jane who brings produce to her. So I'm not be surprised that she can also do delivery. Do you realize it? She has done a structure where Jane is bringing things to her and then she's delivering. So I'm not surprised. So in a case study, if you don't give the context, it's very difficult for us to understand the phenomenon. Do you see that it's going back to the same scholar issue? The preamble that we read earlier, do you realize it?
Yes, please. The fruits.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Okay, so there are different types of case studies. There are case studies that come to explore a phenomenon. Like the one you read here is about exploring the impact of mobiles on micro trading. Then there are case studies that try to describe a real life context in which an intervention has occurred. So to bring rich descriptions, and usually those ones are based on a theory, and the theory will guide you to write this description out. So to describe an intervention itself. Then there's also another type of case study that is also trying to be complex in nature, try to look at causal lens, why something happens and what causes it to happen. And those ones are what we call explanatory case studies. So we've got exploratory, descriptive, and explanatory. Exploratory will explore an area which little is known or little research has been done so that we can get insights. Descriptive case study will require a theory to guide the data collection. The theory will be clearly stated in advance and reviewed to form the basis of design of the descriptive case study. It doesn't mean that if you use a theory in exploratory, you are wrong. It doesn't mean that. But the descriptive case study focuses on describing an event and tells you more rich information about the factors involved in that event. The idea is to try to establish understanding. While explanatory study will try to go beyond that to establish causal links. What causes something to happen? So you usually see it in the explanatory case study that the sections of the work try to tell why it's happened or causes for it to happen, something like that. It's trying to emphasize on the causality. While descriptive will try to describe the issue. So you have seen an example of an exploratory, just exploring a phenomenon and give you an account of what happened. But sometimes you can have a descriptive, and a descriptive can often be very, very, very broad. Okay, let me just show you an example of a description. This is a whole case study that is used for studying studying e-commerce. Now look at this. This is e-commerce capabilities of a Ghanaian used car retailer. Now, because a case study, we said that you have to give us the context, the firm profile, who the firm is, what the firm does, and the context of the firm. Before then, after that, then it talks about how the firm business started, the phenomenon. I remember I told you. So how the firm started and then how the firm sold the first car online, found a supplier online, and then selling the first car, the first customer. So you see that it's describing everything about the firm. Then after that, I start describing the capabilities. So it takes one capability and explain it to you and try to describe it to you and look what it goes into it and how the company formed it up. Then goes to another capability and talks about it. So it's giving an account of everything. So it's very, very descriptive in nature, describing everything that's happening in the company. After that, then you even describe how the company was managing the constraints that they had. So here, the objective is to give us an understanding of how a used car company in Ghana built e-commerce capabilities or was able to sell cars online. That's what it's going to do, is describing. Okay, let me see if I can find one on causality for you to see the differences. Okay, so that's a descriptive case study. Okay. But there are different types of case study going beyond. There's even revelatory case study that try to reveal issues to you concerning a phenomenon. So it will unravel certain things about a phenomenon to you. Okay, let me see if I can find one on okay, this one is a exploratory. So let's give me a second. Okay, okay, good. I found it. Okay. So this one, for example, this is another. I have to confirm that it's the type that you are looking for. So where is the? Okay. Okay. Good. Now this one, this is a similar case to the. Let me show you. That's my. This, okay, good. This is a similar case to the one I showed you earlier. The paper is on e-commerce capabilities again, but this is resources, e-commerce capabilities, and electronic commerce benefits. Now, what you see here is that the person is trying to tell you the link between resources, e-commerce capabilities, and then e-commerce benefits. So how do we achieve e-commerce benefits from resources and capabilities? So that's what it's going to do. So it's going to try to tell you causality. So it starts by, if you look at the data, research methods, it talks about using critical realism. After that, it goes to a longitudinal case study was conducted to seek answer to our research questions. A longitudinal case study, the appropriate method for this study is argued as the best qualitative method to discover, document, and unearth on earth means that you are going to find out the factors that actually cause something. A phenomenon such as strategic processes around IS and business resources on an earth. Okay. So the researchers started by giving the company profile again, like the profile I told you, and then the statistics of the company. Then it goes on to also do the same. So here someone says it's describing, but look at what it's doing. After giving you an account of whatever it is happening here, it goes on to break it down into diagrams to bring the causes out. So you see the diagrams are breaking. So that's when you see causality, called explanatory case studies. They will try to break the thing down to identify processes that led to the thing that whatever they are trying to unearth for you. So you see different diagrams coming out and tables breaking down the phenomenon for you to be able to understand it. But looking at different stages, and after that come up with another model to try to explain the same thing again in a different view for you to be able to see it. So you see that one of the interesting thing about an explanation, look at what I said, a revised model of the e-commerce capability evolution is presented in figure 3 and subsequently explained below. So this one was objective understanding how firms in DEs orient resources to achieve e-commerce benefit amidst their national constraint. Using case study, we evaluated a proposed model and gained empirical evidence to revise constructs and propositions and postulations. The revised, so you get like I said, it was examining specific things, and then that thing that it examined is what generated this particular model. Now, I think there was a previous model before they started the study. I don't know whether that one is there. Good, this was the previous model. So they had this model in the beginning, and then they went to test, check whether the model can explain the phenomenon. And they said that the model cannot explain the phenomenon as they wanted. So they changed parts of the model. Look at this one, founding, developing e-commerce capabilities, and go to maturity stage. So founding, develop, maturity. So e-commerce capabilities come here and then goes to benefit. That's what he's saying. But at the maturity level, the resources can be retrenched or they can be renewed to go back to the founding stage. By the time we finished the study, it was a little bit different. Now look at what is happening. There's another variable that is coming here. Strategic orientation is what triggers the whole thing. It goes to founding and goes to developing and goes to what you call, it doesn't go to maturity, rather goes to e-commerce capability, then go to an orientating stage, which is just to be there. After it has been orientated, the benefits will be generated. That will go to the maturity. And this is, so this CI and explanatory study does, breaks everything down, puts it apart and put them together so that it can tell you that this is what causes a thing to happen. I hope you understand me. All of these are in the folder that Obed will be sharing with you. So I just want you to explain to you that these are the ways that we see different types of study. Now let's look at another one. I'm hoping that I can show more quickly before oh, sorry. I'm not showing the folder. Forgive me. Okay, so there's this, let's look at this one, migrant study. Okay, this migrant study is about migrant women entrepreneurs and emotions encountered in policy fields. I don't know. I don't know what it is, what type of case study it is. So let's go and read whether they'll mention it for us. Okay. Okay, so this one is a qualitative research, but I don't think it's a case study. Let's look at it. Okay, so because you are looking at migrant women and what they are going through. Okay. So Boateng and Wigan argue that there's a need for in-depth qualitative method for entrepreneurship which emphasizes the entrepreneurial context. Remember context. Valentine 2008 argues that new methods are needed in the encounters literature, such as life course histories. Life course history. Where are we going to? Are we going to phenomenology? Okay, so life course histories, that's interesting. Narratives of migration are an instrument for making sense of key life turning points. Life course histories also provide a means to examine connections between individual agency and social structures. And this paper draws on 40 life course interviews, which with migrant women in Sweden. They are now in Sweden, okay. And in countries of Stockholm and Västmanland. Interviews were conducted between 2017 and 2019 Migrant women came from 26 different countries spanning all populated continents. The women, or they said, they give us some information about the women and then how they selected the women. It's very good for you to understand how they selected. So this is the Swedish entrepreneur policy following a generalized entrepreneurial journey. So what it's doing here is what is called life course history to be able to generate entrepreneurial stories. So this one is more likely to be classified as a lived experience because you're talking about the women, what they went through. So you are going to phenomenology, but this one, the women are giving account. So it's a transcendental phenomenological approach. I don't know whether it actually, or some of them also call it a narrative case study. From this one, it does not say it, but it talks about narratives here. Okay, let's see. Mention it at a close end. Okay, didn't mention it at a close end. Okay. So we are seeing much more of a life course history being captured here, which is more of like a lead experience. Okay. Okay. So let's continue and see another one. I want to try to use different type of case studies from different studies so that the students can appreciate. This paper that we used to talk about at the beginning of the semester. It was on, if you remember, it's a qualitative paper on small businesses in accounting. So this is accounting. And this one is a case study, just a purely a case study. And they state it inside. A multiple case study approach using 6 cases to study family businesses. So they use 6 cases and they have different cases. So in that scenario, they presented the different cases in much more of summaries. So company 1, so look at company A, and it tells you how they interviewed them. We studied 6 small family business, 5 located in Mexico, 1 in the USA. We conducted 14 interviews, 9 with the owners or the family employees, and 5 with other non-family employees. Okay. So somebody will ask, how many do you need? So if there are 6 family business, so it means that at least each of them, at least 2 people are interviewed there. That's what you can just get. So company 1, company 2, you see, they are giving you descriptions about the context is being established. Context is being established. Company 3, company 4, company 5. Okay, then company 6. And after that, it uses a table to summarize the data from all of them. Okay, so it tells you how many interviews were done from the different industries. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there are 6 companies here. 6 companies here, and each of them, how many do you interview? So first company, 3 people. Third company, the total interviews, 1. Okay, number of people working there, how many people you interviewed? Okay, so it's using this one. Okay, now, how many non-family? So you see a breakdown, participant breakdown for you to be able to know what is done. This one is one of the exams, one of the questions I'm giving to you today, which is a possible exam question. How to be able to extract the people who are interviewed in the case study. So look at the example here. Can help you. Family members interview, non-family members interview. Okay, let's continue. So I've shown you this one. Can I just show one more from healthcare so that at least I've done so I'm going around a little bit, and not all firms have been, all of you have been captured, but at least it makes it easier to healthcare barriers. Okay, let's look at this one. This one we discussed this paper some time ago by Dr. Boateng. Okay, Professor Boateng. Sorry, forgive me. Okay, so look at this. This study is an exploratory research that uses qualitative research design and in-depth interviews to collect data. So they collected data from a number of the districts, and they sampled people. 10 hospital staff were selected for participation in the study on the basis of their position and the hospitals, and they made them answer interview questions. Okay, participants included 4 staff from St. Luke Hospital. So they are taken from different hospitals in this scenario, and then 3 from Efutu Hospital, 3 from Jumaku Hospital, and all 3 hospital administrators, 3 nurse managers, and then 3 clinical coordinators, and 1 human resource manager participating in the interview. So this one is not trying to build a case study of one of them. It's just trying to look at a holistic view of the issue. So in that case, it will pick it from 3 different hospitals. Picking on 3 different hospitals. So much more of an in-depth interview is what it's trying to do now. I don't call it a case study. I call it, it's exploratory research, qualitative already, but it's drawing from different perspectives from respondents in a particular area of field of study, or that's being the healthcare industry. Okay. Then lastly, in terms of HR, okay, so look at this one. This is a managing project stakeholder communication, the Q-Stock Festival case. So this is about project management. They look at managing projects, managing festivals as a project. Okay. So if you read it, if you read the methodology, it's very interesting. I think they do what we call theory elaboration. The idea is to try to come up with a theory or suggest a theory for a given context. Our theory elaboration was based on the interplay between the theory and examination of data collected in the case study. The case study approach for the data collection was chosen for the following reason. One, first, a case study is particularly suitable for theory elaboration research. Two, a case study, there's theory testing, and then there's theories explanation, theory elaboration. In theory elaboration, you try to use the empirical data to illustrate a general conceptual theoretical framework. So you have got a framework and you use the theory, the data you have collected to try to see whether it's reflecting that same thing that you are saying. Okay. Then second, a case study is beneficial because it investigates the phenomenon in this real life context. Remember what we mentioned. Third, a case study is considered suitable for a research question that asks how and why. That is true. When you're asking how and why questions, you use this one. And usually very good. We focus on a single case, a single project, because it provides unusually revelatory information. Now, that's revelatory case studies are usually one which is focused on one particular company and try to go in depth and reveal unravel information that's relevant to understanding or elaborating the theory we are trying to study. So this is the empirical context. Remember, look at it. Q-Stock Music Festival. Before I can tell you about the festival, I got to give you the context. This is the empirical context. I told you that every case study starts with the context. After they give you the context, then they can then be able to tell you the findings that they have out of it. So empirical findings and theory elaboration. So then you can then discuss the issues there with you. A very good, interesting paper. You may want to read it later. Good. So that is that for what I was trying to show you. So let's go back. Okay. Now we can have a single case where you're focusing only one bounded phenomenon or a one bounded event. Okay. And then you can also have multiple case studies where you're looking at multiple cases or multiple bounded events or a multiple bounded phenomenon to be able to. Multiple bounded means that there are different ones. For example, I can say I'm doing e-learning in the University of Ghana and GIMPA. GIMPA is one bounded phenomenon, one bounded context, and another bounded context is University of Ghana. So I would like to do the study in University of Ghana and then in GIMPA. That would be a multiple case study. So it draws from more than one case. And then the single case will look at a one bounded system, where it's looking at extreme cases to confirm or challenge a theory. Single case studies are good for confirming and challenging a theory, or to do theory elaboration, trying to check whether the theoretical framework you have built can be illustrated by the particular case that you are trying to use to explain. So that one goes into single case design. By multiple case design is when you want to even use the data itself to be able to compare with each other, so that you check whether whatever you found in firm A is not something that's happened out of a mistake, but it's actually consistent. You can see it in firm B and then see it in firm C in case you have got 3 cases in that scenario. So I've got multiple case study and you have got single case study. Multiple case studies, the multiple is done to confirm the evidence in another case. So one case compares to another. That enhances the reliability and validity of the research work. but it requires more extensive resources. While with a single case study, you're actually looking at comparing it with the theory. So then you can find out whether the theory itself is replicated by the case. Okay. Now, in designing a case study, you have the 4-step approach and the 7-step approach. In the 4-step approach, is all the same, just the one is elaborates more. For example, first of all, you need to design a case study protocol. So you identify the research question, you determine the kind of case study you are going to do, the type of participants you are going to collect the data from, where you are going to collect the data. All of those are the things that go into the case study protocol. The objectives of why you are doing it, the questionnaire you are going to use. And then the structure of the questionnaire, like the structure of the report when you finish collecting the data. Good. And then you conduct a case study and you analyze the data and you develop your conclusions. In the 7-step approach, you are doing a similar thing. But you start by identify the research questions, the type of case study you want to do, select your participants, and then you collect your data, analyze your data. So the first 3 parts, or 1, 2, 3, is and even where you collect your data, all form part of your case study protocol. So case study protocol is like a guide that will be for the case study. 1, in it you see the overview of the project. Number 2, you also understand the field procedures and techniques that are going to be used and the skills that will be used. You can even have budget to that extent. 3, the questionnaire that your person is going to use. 4, when you collect the data, how is she going to outline it in terms of a report? Good. So somebody asked the prof, is there an example you can show to us? Yes, there's an example for my PhD, which Ubed has shared with you before. If not, he will share it with you as I talk. So just give me a second. Let me just load my PhD. So, just go ahead whilst I load the obvious question I'm looking for.
Please, with this research topic that talks about comparing two study areas, like maybe you get a topic and someone want to do a comparative analysis between maybe 2 businesses, maybe Tonaton and Jumia. Can we describe that one as a multiple case study?
Yeah, you can do that that's a multiple. That could be a multiple. I don't see that is. So that could be a multiple case study. So you're comparing 2 firms or comparing two banks. But let me give you an example. What if you are on a car bank and you're comparing 2 branches of the bank? Is it multiple or it is single?
Prof, that I think is multiple.
Technically, it is a single embedded case study. The multiple is in the embedded part, because you are in one organization, car bank, you are comparing 2 branches. So it's single embedded. So the multiple happens in the fact that in a single case study, you have got embedded cases inside. So it's like you are comparing 2 cases within one case, 2 units within one case. Do you understand it? Somebody's making some noise. Okay. Oh, I can't find my. I have to try and finish this thing. So let me. Oh. Okay.
Hello, Prof.
Yes, please.
Yes, Prof, I'd want to find out, can one do a single case study and then compare it to a work that has already been done? As in just like it's been, like we do the comparative analysis in the multiple case studies. Can that be done?
I've seen somebody do something like that in his PhD, but it wasn't a single case. He did multiple cases. Then when he finished, he compared it to somebody's published work already, the findings, to be able to point out that what he's found is quite different from what others have done already in the past. So that's a little bit tricky. But your question is that whatever you do is possible, but the question is that why are you doing it? And is it sound? Does it make sense for you to do that? Is that the best way to address the issue? That's the question that somebody will ask. Okay, so this is my PhD. I quickly want to just show you how case study protocols are. This is not the full document of the case study, but it's an extract of it. So usually in the case study protocol, we say that to tell you about the objectives of the study. To tell you about the research. Where is it? Where's my PowerPoint? The field procedures to be used, and then the case study questionnaire. Okay. So in my PhD, God, look at it. In order to case study profiling, so this is the structure of the case studies I'm going to build. I remember that one of the things we said, a good, if you can remember, I said that a good, let me just show that part, sorry. Got this one. Look at this one, the items are there, and then let's compare. So this is case study profile. So look at it, case study profiling. So this is what a guide for the case study report. So structure. So in this one, you are asking questions on the first background, the context, and then the issues. So you can see it all be captured here. Then where are you going to collect your data? Who are your respondents? The field procedures to be used. Okay, so who are them? The internal interviews in the company, and then the external interviewers. Yeah, so we have to know that some of your people you are interviewing, some of them are internal to the organization, and others are external to the organization. Some of them, even though they are internal, they may be direct to the phenomenon and then indirect to the phenomenon. Obed, I hope this time you can type the definitions down for me. I beg you. So they are internal to the organization, external to the organization. Then you can have in the internal to the organization, you have direct to the phenomenon and indirect to the phenomenon. When you say direct, means that like the IT manager, if you're talking about a website, he's direct to the website, but a production manager may not be direct to the website. So he may be indirect, means that he does certain things that are captured for it, but he may not be the person who's hands-on to the issue. Okay. So there's internal to the organization and external to the organization, and there's direct to the phenomenon and indirect to the phenomenon. Okay, good. So keep it in mind because I'll come back to it. Then you ask questions. So then where is your questionnaire? So the questions you're going to objectives of what you're going to do. So when you meet these people, what are your interview objectives? What are you going to ask them? And but this is for interview, the interview type of data. What about artifact examination? Artifact examination is when a qualitative researcher wants to observe a physical artifact, a physical activity, a physical a physical artifact or a virtual artifact, meaning that in this one it is a website, so he's going to examine the website and then review it and examine and evaluate it. So he's going to evaluate the website, and we call that one as part of artifact examination, which is a form of observation. So you are observing this virtual platform and try to understand what can we learn from it based in relation to a research question. And this one all will be captured into the case study. Now look at it. Look at this particular thing. Let me just quickly show you, just wow you a little bit. When you look at this, when you look at this particular case study that led to which came from this particular questionnaire. If you look at this, the artifact that has been examined is what is you see here. This is one of the artifacts, the pictorial presentation here. Now it's asking questions on website traffic details, information provided online, frequency of online updates. Now look at how it was translated here. Okay. I want somewhere I can give you the details. Good, look at it. The domain name was carimports.com. It consists of 3 pages about us, contact and review page. The slideshow consists of 15 pages of cars which are available. The website was advertised through Ghanaian social media, social news website through this. The website was not updated during the entire period. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? And how many businesses came to the website is mentioned. How many phone calls were received? It's mentioned. What kind of information was the website? It's mentioned. It's coming from the artifact examination. We did a second one. Look at this one too. The second artifact. This is another artifact of the company's website. So the website consists of 7 pages. Product, homepage, buy a car, search a car, request a car, sell your car, and frequently ask questions. The website functionality is for this and that and that and that. At the end of the day, how many cars were sold through the website? It's also mentioned. how many people advertise were visiting the website, the increase in the monthly level of visits. Average number of monthly visits to the website were in 2000 were 115. In 2007, the average month, so it's giving you the statistics. And what is it? Website traffic details. So this kind of thing that we say develop a protocol, it will guide you to write your case study. If you don't develop it, you will not be able to develop a very good case study. Okay, so let's go on. What kind of documentary analysis data are you going to go for? Industry reports for the industry one, the internal report from organization, e-commerce documentation, minutes of related meeting if they exist. All of this doesn't mean that all of this is a financial report. So where is financial report helpful? So in the case study, look at it itself. The case study, there's a table that shows the financial profile of Lanka Consult. You can see it here, financial profile. Financial profile is here. So whatever you do in your case study protocol will lead you to develop a very good case study. If your case protocol is bad, you are going to have a problem. Then at the end of the day, this is what we call the case report. When you finish everything, how many people do you interview and then what report do you write out of it? So this one is for another thing later. Okay. So we are coming back to our research work that we were doing. I was trying to point out that the case study report, the case study protocol matters. So after that, developing the protocol, you go and collect your data. Then you analyze your data and then you develop your conclusions and evidence. And then in developing your conclusions and implications, you can write out the data as in a case study story format, which you will learn about how to write a case study out. And then you can also document that you some of the data that you collected and where and who were part of the data collection process, because you need to capture it. And this is the same thing I was just talking about. Identify the research question they are going to answer. The type of case study you want to do, whether single or multiple, whether embedded or holistic. Okay, so embedded case study or holistic case study. Embedded case study, I've got simple individual elements, units within the mother case study. Then the holistic, you are seeing the mother case study as the whole, as in its entirety as a whole. Okay. So you collect your data. You have to know how to triangulate from multiple sources so that you can avoid biases, bringing data from different sources to write a story. Okay. So collecting your data. What guides you in collecting the data? One, your research gaps and purpose and updates and questions will guide you to develop a research questionnaire. You also have a theoretical framework which will also inform the research questionnaire. So research questionnaire will always have a structure like this. The first part, I think Obed met with you guys to explain how to develop a research questionnaire. Obed, is that not true?
Oh, it was the theory session.
Okay, then I think you have to arrange a tutorial for them. Maybe just after this one, you do it for them. Field notes.
Okay, Paul.
Okay, so field notes. Record the time, the date, and description of the natural settings. Introduction of the research. Then demographics. Then the main question. So what we are trying to say that when you start your study, because we need context, capture the context issue. So that's the first part you want to capture. The second part is then introduce yourself to the interviewee. Yeah. And then if there are some keywords that you need to define, explain them. Then you can go to demographics by putting the basic details about the person's gender, age, and information about the person who is responding. That's the demographics that we collect. But be careful. You don't look at the person when something is obvious. You're asking the person, do you work in company B? He's telling that you already know that he works there. You're asking, do you work there? Are you male? The person is sitting in front of you as male. You're asking, are you male? So those questions, you have to be very careful because you have to understand that some of them are obvious. You have a short time to ask questions. Focus on what matters. Then you have your main questions, which will come from your theoretical framework or guide you, a guidance from your theoretical framework. Good. And then, and in your research framework, your research framework will have certain variables in it, and this one can be used to guide you in writing out your research questionnaire. Then sometimes after your interview, impromptu questions will come, follow-up questions will come, then you may want to capture them. After that, you put your questions, your answers together, and you review your transcriptions. And so it can be used for the subsequent analysis. Okay, so in a nutshell, look at this one. What's the impact of mobiles on micro trading? So the questions are well outlined there. When the questions were outlined as the leading research questions, it led to the development of conceptual framework in which we said that there's mobile phones are adopted by the market demand for different types of trade activities, leading to benefits and impact. So it gives you a case like this. The first paragraph being the case background, the rest being the phenomenon of study, with the quotations showing that you were in the field and collected the data. Okay. So, as I mentioned earlier, to start with your case study report, you have to have an outline. The outline will always begin with the context. That's the case study context itself. Case study context. What is the company about? What did the company do? Case study. And I showed you an example that all the cases that you had, I showed you one from the accounting one. They all give you the context of the firm profile, the firm, who the firm is and stuff. Then after that, the phenomenon you are going to study, and the other issues based on the phenomenon. So these are the three-way structure of a case study. A good case study will always have the context of the case. Then you can go to the phenomenon of study, and then the phenomenon, issues within the phenomenon, factors or dimensions within the phenomenon. So in the firm profile, you are asking questions of who, what, how, the structure, achievements, resources, financial performance. You can cover as much as this. But it depends, but you may not report all of them if the paper is very small. For a long essay, you can report as much as you can, and a thesis. But for a paper, you see most of them are very brief, so you don't report that much. But it gives you an idea. Okay, so in a firm profile, all the information that's relevant to defining the firm is captured, including financial information. But the question is, who are you going to interview? There are different categories of interviewees. There's those who are internal to the issue and those who are external to the issue. So that's number one. Number two, those who are internal, those who have got direct knowledge about the issue, and those who have got indirect knowledge about the issue. So you have but in other the rejections or in other explanation, there is also other perspectives. Some respondents are time related, meaning that at a particular time, depending on what was occurring, like we saw in the scholar's case, that person may have a viewpoint that may be necessary. For example, you are doing study that reflects on an issue when dating back to the early 90s. You may want to capture specific things about the firm. For example, I remember in my situation, I was doing studies on e-commerce in developing countries. So I was looking at Ghanaian firms who had developed e-commerce. I took Amal Bank, which is now Bank of Africa, at that time to do my study, my first study. By the time I came back again to collect new data, the Amal Bank had been sold. It has now become Bank of Africa. So it means that do I keep it in the company and they were not interested in the study anymore? Or I have to change it. So some of the issues that I was going to ask them, it was going to be about Amal Bank in the past, but Amal Bank in the past has now been dissolved, and some of them have gotten a very good share by selling the bank and then left the banking industry. So how can I find them to be able to ask them questions based on a bank that doesn't exist anymore? So some of the issues may be time related, and the time can help or can also create a constraint. If it is in the present, it's easier for that a time-related issue, they can reflect with the person, then the person can share. But if it's quite a long time ago, even reflecting may be even difficult for the person to answer your questions. Then event-based, some of the respondents are event-based or activity-based. For example, supposing you are interviewing a musician, maybe let's say you have interviewed Kojo. Some of the things that he has done are in the past, his old album. So those are time-based, but some of the things he also done with event-based, an activity. For example, Kojo used to have an evening program, a December program that he does every year, where he brings young couples and elderly couples together and sings some of his top songs to them. I don't know whether he does that again, but it was a kind of a Kojo experience. So that was an event based. So if you attend that one, you can answer questions based on that event that you attended. Then there are some respondents that are also snowball. A snowball respondent is not an original respondent. It's a respondent that comes from a referral. So as you're interviewing somebody who came through an event, somebody who came through time, or somebody who is transitional. Today is there, tomorrow is not there, Tuesday is there. It happens. There are sometimes some respondents to the organization, they are very transitional in nature. They are in it, they are out, they are in it, they are out. Yeah. So in such a scenario, there is snowball respondent is the one who was referred either by somebody who has internal knowledge about the issue that you are trying to study, or somebody who has external knowledge about the issue, or somebody who is coming to interact with you by event or by time. The person recommends somebody else to. Okay, so you have got the time-based one, you have got the event-based one, you have got the transitional, you have got the snowball respondent. And then on the other side, you have got those who are internal to the issue and those who are external. Internal meaning that they have experienced the issue and they are internally in the organization. So in the experience, it can be direct or indirect. Okay, so somebody may be internal but has indirect knowledge or direct knowledge, indirect knowledge or direct knowledge. And somebody may be external to the organization. So he may be external, he may be outside the organization, but he may have some knowledge about the issue. So he can even have indirect or direct knowledge about the issue. Okay. Okay. To make it more easier to explain, I'm coming. Let me do external to the organization.
Look, so if I may ask.
Yes, sir. Please, let
so
the guy
for example,
you can round up after he asks his question. I know you have a class.
So for the external to the organization, let's say I want to do a case study on KYC. There can be, let's say, a cleaner that comes there and they might have an example, an understanding of what I want to ask. Would that qualify as an external to the organization?
Okay, I've clarified. Sorry, let me just do something about the spelling. I'll answer you. I think I should use the Kojo one to be an example for you. Then you can understand it very well. So let's take Kojo for example. Now he's making an album. We are studying about the legend Kojo and how he makes his music. Now those who are internal to the organization can be part of. Oh, sorry. Sorry. I spelled something wrongly, so let me just do correct. Good. Okay, so those who are now, let me share. Good. So now let's take it one by one. So we have got the internal, then external, and then external, then cross boundary. Now there are people who are internal to the organization but have direct knowledge. So I'm part of Kojo Entry's production team. So I, as the manager, I'm internal to the organization. I'm also have direct knowledge about how he makes the music because I'm in the studio with him. But I'm maybe Kojo Entry's father or wife. He doesn't let me go to the studio with him. I'm in the house. Maybe sometimes he gets an epiphany in the house. So I am internal to his environment, but I don't have direct experience of the music production process. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? But I can tell you certain things that only I will know. Then you have got those who are external to the organization. So, for example, Kojo Entry can choose to engage with an industry journalist who is external to the organization. But there are some journalists who like following the person everywhere. So they are external to the organization, but they are direct experience. He may be invited to this album's making. Let me give an example, a real world example. For example, you know Kanye West. Kanye West in one of his albums.
Yes.
I've forgotten the album. The album that has this one on it. Gold Digger. Is it Gold Digger or is it Gold Digger? That album that has that Gold Digger song on and all those kind of I'm a champion. Stronger. Is it Stronger? Yeah. He has a song called Stronger and then Champion. And then is it Good Day or some other song? I forgot. It's a it's one of his, it's a teddy bear on the album cover. Those of you
College Dropout.
College Dropout, good. When College Dropout was being made, I mean, I produce music, so I understand what I'm trying to understand me a little bit. When College Dropout was being produced, Kanye, after some of the songs, he takes it to some of the industry journalists and influencers like Ellen DeGeneres, that lady, and she will play some songs to you and get feedback to go back to studio and change it. Because if Ellen likes it and Ellen talks about it, it will let the music sell. This is the extent of input. So Ellen is in the external to the organization. She's a media personality. But Kanye books time, goes to her and she plays the song to him and gets input. Do you understand what I'm saying? Then in the previous album, there's one song that he thought he had finished. Then he went to meet with Timbaland. And Timbaland told him that your bass is too low on some other thing, your bass is too low on some other things. So let me do something for you. And he added some small touch to it and he changed the whole song. So sometimes you may, even your production, someone is not in your production team, but you may have your song and then go, you take it, he may hear about something, or you may send something to you, and the person gives you feedback, and that comes to. So for that particular issue, he's internal to that phenomenon, but he's external to the organization. The reason I'm saying that, you always have to understand that we say case study is a study of a bounded system. There are some people who are internal to the system, there are people who are external to the system, and there are some people who are cross-boundary. A cross-boundary person can be a person who sits in and out. He serves towards. Usually, you can have someone like, let me use one example. Someone for some time, one person can be seen as a bounded person for Shatawale, a cross-boundary person for Shatawale is Bulldog. He was inside, then he came out and went into the was external. Now he sits at a place where he's able to give you internal information, external information. So kind of a cross-boundary personality for Shatawale. I don't know how they are intimate they are now, but I'm just trying to use that as an example. Good. Now, I'm just trying to let you appreciate what happened. So even with you who is doing a study on KYC and stuff, sometimes the regulator is a cross-boundary person. He's an outside organization, but he's also internal, coming to check your books and check everything. Are you adhering to the issues? Like Bank of Ghana. Bank of Ghana can say one thing, but then everything about Car Bank will just go down. But he's also external to the organization, but some of the things he does for you is internal. So he's a cross-boundary participant. Do you understand me with the KYC guy?
Yes, Prof, I do now.
But do you know that if you have developed a new website, a new banking website for retail banking, the consumer is external to the bank, but as an organization, because the consumer can have multiple bank accounts and you have one with you and another person, but for the experience of that platform, he has direct knowledge because he has an account with you. So he has direct engagement with your website. So for your website, he's external to the organization, but he has a direct knowledge of the website, direct intimacy of the website. Now, why am I worrying myself to show you all this thing? I'm trying to show that there are multiplicity of respondents. If you're not very careful in the study, you don't know which respondent matters most to your study. Let me give an example. Look at this table. This table is a table showing you a case respondents for a particular research study or mobile learning in Ghana. Now, my PhD student Harriet, who is the first PhD researcher, female IS graduate of our program. So the first PhD, female PhD person with an IS degree, which is quite phenomenal from UG. And even I think in the whole country itself. Harriet did a study and look at published four case studies. Public sector 1, public sector university 1, public sector university 2, private sector university 1, private sector university 2. Now, we are doing mobile learning. For the lecturers who are direct and internal, all of them 6 were interviewed. Students 6 were interviewed. Now, the program coordinator is external to the e-learning activity in the classroom. So he goes 1 here, but he's very a program coordinator can stop a program. So he's very important. He's direct to the experience, but he's external to the classroom activity. I'm using the classroom activity as an example. Now, the content developer can also be seen as maybe internal, but he got only 2. But to the experience of the issue, he may not be direct. He may be indirect. The systems administrator is direct. And internal is direct, but he may not work for only that class. He works for the whole university. So for the class, he's external, but he's direct. He has direct knowledge about everything because he developed the e-learning platform for you. Technical support too are the same way. Timetable developer does not need to be in your classroom. He's serving the whole institution. So he's not direct to experience, and he's also external. But he can also be corresponding in some definitions. So if you look at it, those which are very, very direct to the experience, he made sure that he captured 1, 2. The vice chancellors, he got only the private, he couldn't get the public. And these are indirect to the classroom activity. They're external to the classroom activity, and they're not even direct to the classroom activity. So he doesn't worry too much. See, this is what I was trying to explain to you. You can end up getting a lot of indirect people and external people, and then you don't have direct people and internal people, and that will let your study fail. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, please.
Obed, I think this is by far the best explanation ever. MBA students, are you here? Do you understand it better now? Last year, this was a question for you. I know they're not MBA students here. Okay, they are all info. Okay, then the question will come for you too. Then you have set yourself a question. Okay, now you can ask your question, and then please, I think I was supposed to break for some students to go.
Hello, Prof.
People are enjoying the class, so they are seriously here. Obed, should I continue?
Hello.
Yes.
Please they are no longer breaking.
Hello, Prof.
Oh, please ask the question. Hello, Prof. Hello, Prof. We are not answering the question.
I read somewhere that in most case study research, most researchers adopt the purposive sampling method. And I wanted to know whether how true that statement.
We'll come to the sample. Okay, so let's switch to the other material and then come back again. He's talking about how do we select respondents. Okay. So this is the other material that you read. It's in the book already, and I've slides on it, but I just want to use the material to teach because I want you to read the material. And after that, we can just round up. Okay. So the material talks about one, sampling in qualitative research. What you asked the question was sampling. Recruitment, how do you select the respondents? And then ethical guidelines. I will not be able to cover it like how, so I expect you to, when you read the material, you read it because there's an exam question on that one. Okay, so what are some of the qualitative research methods? We have got participant observation, approach for collecting data on naturally occurring behaviors in usual context, in-depth interviews for collecting data on individual personal histories and perspectives and experience, focus group discussion for collecting them in a group. Not just about culture, but even just in a group. So you can understand the behavior of people in the group. That's what you use the word culture here for. This is not culture in terms of where you come from alone, but it's about the behavior of a group. Okay. So they differ, qualitative and quantitative differ. I think that one we can look at it. You have looked at it already, but let's look into the details of the sampling. Good. So you talk about purposive sampling. So sampling is a process of selecting a number of respondents from a population so that you can do a study based on that small respondents you have selected to be able to infer on the population. So we will choose, like I want to study the graduate students in MPhil students. You are about, let's say, 200 students in an MPhil students, both year 1 and year 2. But I can take a sample like maybe MIS students year 1 and MIS and then marketing students year 2 and then HR students year 2 and then maybe accounting students year 1. I've been able to sample, but the question is that how did I sample? Was I doing random sampling or was I doing purposive sampling? Was it based on certain criteria? If I don't do that, it becomes arbitrary and it can we call it haphazard sampling. It can lead to biases. For example, there is demonstration going on and you want to do haphazard, you want to do sampling and you come out of a radio station and the people who are walking on the street, you just interview them. Now if the demonstration people are passing in front there, all the views you get will be negative. If this is negative towards the government, it will be all negative. You didn't get a very, very good sampling frame. You just chose the people who are there. Just sampling frame are the possible number of respondents who are available to you so they can sample from. Okay. So what happens is that you are actually come out of your studio and you have just selected them. It is haphazard sampling, very, very biased. So sometimes in qualitative research, because we are trying to get understanding from the concerning phenomenon, we can't just do like what happened to the scholar. You meet anybody and ask him about where is the apple? Where is the apple? You didn't find out whether these are farmers or these are people who have even seen an apple before. So they'll just give you their views on it and it can lead to erroneous interpretations. So to avoid those erroneous interpretations, you want to make sure you are doing purposive sampling. People who are selected based on certain criteria. So purposive sampling, one of the most common sampling strategies or group participants, groups or select participants according to pre-selected criteria relevant to the research question you have. For example, HIV positive women in a capital city. So that you are focusing on that. Sample sizes which may or may not be fixed prior to data collection depend on the resources and time available. In fact, that's one of the constraints of qualitative research. The time available for you can affect your study a lot. Purposive sample, because you are doing in-depth, sometimes you don't have much time. Purposive sample sizes are often determined based on theoretical saturation at the point in which the data collection, when the new data no longer brings additional insight, like you, after talking to the end person, you are not getting any more new information, so you stop, and that one can happen. So sometimes even in your own classroom, interview students on their views concerning their class. I can interview just 10 students. By the time I finish the 10 students, I've gotten a very good picture of what's happening in the class. But it will be very difficult for me to say that in 2 students. Do you understand me? Because the class size is about 80 something. But if I do my purposive sampling very well, I can end up choosing students. For example, if you choose students randomly, you may end up choosing students who come to the last 30 minutes of the class. So those who like to sit in the beginning of the class, you need to capture them. And they can tell you a different experience from those who come in the last 30 minutes. You may end up choosing students who are only in MIS and who will say that who meet me twice in a week, so they may have more intimate understanding of what I teach than those who just meet me once a week. You may end up only choosing marketing students who sometimes I use the examples on the first day, I use the example on that first day, and somebody will say that, oh, he favors marketing students more. Not necessarily. So if you're not very careful and you don't choose your sampling very well, you don't do your criteria very well, you have a problem. Purposive sampling is therefore most successful when the data review and analysis is done in conjunction with the data collection. This is a very, very good point. It means that as you are doing the data collection, you are sampling to check whether all the perspectives are being represented. I'm doing the study and I don't realize that my sample that I've selected, like I said, that I'm taking only students. Let me use as an example. I'm taking only students who come in the first 30 minutes of the class. By the time I realize maybe in the first 15 minutes of the class, there's a class that has been closing late. They don't come early. And I've only chosen out of the 6 programs that are exhibited or represented here, I only have 4 of them. So by my purposive sampling, I've selected only 4 groups of 4 of the people who are here. The groups are here. The other 2 groups, I never captured them because of the degree I did my sampling strategy. So I may have to be reviewing it. And as I'm reviewing, I may find out, 2 other groups are not really, then I may end up selecting them. Now, so purposive sampling, you select a criteria, use the criteria to choose your study. The criteria should be related to your research question. Quota sampling is sometimes considered as a type of purposive sampling. It's also common. In quota sampling, we decided while designing the study, how many people with the characteristics to include the participants. So now you are going a little bit much more than the purposive sampling. So one, what characteristics do you want? I want a particular age group. I want a particular place of residence, gender, profession, marital status. I want a particular class to be presented. HR students, MIS students, risk students, banking students, public admin students, health students. The criteria we choose allow us to focus on the people we think will most likely to know about the problem that we are trying to study. Then we go into the community using the recruitment strategies appropriate to the location, culture, and study population. Find out those who fit the criteria until we meet the prescribed quotas. Do you understand it? We'll talk about recruitment later. Now, purposive sampling. So how does purposive and then quota differ? Purposive and quota sampling are similar in that they both seek to identify participants based on selected criteria. However, quota sampling is more specific to sizes and proportions. So somebody may want to make sure that the proportion they have is reflective. If the class that we have is for every 4, there are 4 to a class of 10 students, there are 6 boys and 6 male and 4 female. So that gives you how many? 3 to 2. Is that right? Is that right? 3 to 2. Yes. Good. It's 3 to 2. So what you will try to do is that if it's 3 to 2 ratio and you are choosing 20 respondents, you are going to make sure that is going to be 3 times 5, that's 15, and then and 2 times 5, that's 10. So 15 mil, and then 10, sorry, 3 times 4, that's 12, and then 2 times 4, that's 8. So it's going to be 12 women, 12 men and 8 women. So the quota sampling, the number matters. Snowball sampling is referral sampling, which I mentioned earlier. So you're going to refer people. Okay. Now recruitment is all about how do we select people to join. So I'm talking about the sample. Then how do you choose the people? Okay, that one. Let me hold on that one now. Okay, but whatever it is, you have to have informed consent of the person to be participating in the study. Let's take Ken's question. Okay, this one is part of the questions I gave you. So you.
Yeah. Good morning, Doc.
Hey, are you now coming to class? Good morning.
No, I've been here, Doc. Okay, so my question is that can you participate in an activity or a service in order to gather information for your research without the knowledge of the service, the knowledge of the people in the service you are participating on, the thing you are participating? Let me give an example. So you go to website. There are a lot of websites with telephone numbers that when you call, they don't pick. So can you sample them, about 100 of websites with telephone numbers, and call them one after the other so that you can get some information in order to inform the literature you are writing, or the thesis you are writing?
Yes, but the phone number is not a respondent. It's the human being behind the phone number who is the respondent. I can have a phone number with there and it goes to the secretary, but the secretary does not give me information about my study. I need a manager. So this is about what we call getting entry. What you're talking about is getting entry. So for example, organizations are there. You want to go to get entry and get to the MD. You can do phone call and try to get to entry, or you can look for a person who went to school with the MD to link you. Or you may go to with a formal letter, which the business school allows you to do. You use your formal letter, you take it to your company that you want to come and do a study here. This is what the study about. This is a sample questionnaire that you have, and then they can give you access. So you have to use the formal approach to be able to do that.
No, Doc, that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that you want to see how helpful telephone numbers provided on a website of organization are helpful or are useful.
In terms of your study?
Yes.
Okay, the organizations are not, and the telephone numbers are not a unit of analysis. Is the organization, and the characteristic of the organization is the telephone number. So do you understand me? Okay. So you have to select your organization. Are you doing the Ghana Club 100 organizations? So do you understand what I'm trying to say? Then, or are you doing agri manufacturing, or are you doing agribusinesses, or are you doing entrepreneurs in general? Or are you comparing industry? So the phone number is a characteristic of a respondent, the respondent being the organization. Do you understand? Like how age is a characteristic of you. A phone number is a characteristic of you. So you are checking, even though your study is about the phone number, it's a characteristic of an entity, and the entity is the organization. So you are studying on the level of organization. So you cannot just do arbitrary harvesting of phone numbers. It has to be tied to the organization. So you can say out of Ghana Club 100 firms, 30% of them have working phone numbers on their websites. That tells you about the gravity of the situation. That less than half of the country top firms put the right phone numbers on their website. So it has implications. Is that not true?
Yes.
About corporate communication.
Yes. Yes.
Ken, your voice sounds very deep. It looks like you are elderly and either a company owner or more mature in the business you do.
Yes, please.
Yes, it's true. Right.
Yes. Yes, please.
Anyway, okay. I hope you are not Kenya Asibe, the graphic, formerly of graphic.
Say that again.
I thought you were. I said I hope you are not Ken of graphic, the one who was.
No, please. No, please.
Okay then. Thank you very much. Very, very deep question, very relevant. But if that study will be very interesting. I don't know whether for marketing. That's a very interesting study.
Yes, I'm doing MPhil marketing.
Interesting. But it's not everybody. I wonder whether anybody will be innovative enough to see interesting perspective from this question. Somebody may say phone number is more MIS, but what you are talking about, phone number is an extension of a marketing arm of communication arm of a company, even for relationship building.
Yes.
Anyway, class, if you are doing phone number, then extend it to email address. Some companies have not working email address, and some companies have got the wrong address to surprise you, wrong addresses on their website.
Yes,
like World Food Program.
Okay. Somebody saying something about World Food Program. Okay.
Yeah, email addresses.
It's wrong. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much. So let's continue. Let's go back to our question, this thing, and then we can round up. Okay. I'll come back to ethical issues in that document, but the recruitment strategies, I want you to read them so that we can discuss it later. Okay, let me point something to you. There's very something interesting there. Let me just, of course, this guy, you just mentioned it is actually highlighted there. It has happened to my students before, so I just want to highlight it before I switch it off. Okay, so look at what it says about recruitment. Each research team develop guidelines for introductory comments staff make to potential participants at each site. These guidelines need to be sensitive to the social and cultural context from which participants will be recruited. They also should reflect the researchers' awareness and willingness to participate in the interview, or focus groups will depend on how well the participants understand what the study is about. In developing recruitment guidelines, that's selection, to be able to get to your participants, it's important to take special care to avoid saying it that could be interpreted as coercive. The voluntary nature of the participation in the research study should always be emphasized. Now, the reason why I'm pointing out this is that usually when students write that letter to the companies in the business school that they want to come and interview somebody there, they don't ask specifics. Some of them to ask specific, and it's like a chicken and egg issue, or you don't know which of them will help you or not help you. Why am I saying that? Sometimes you write that you say that the questionnaire is attached and take you about 30 minutes to administer the questionnaire. Now you have told the company that you are going to spend 30 minutes of their time, and if you say you're interviewing 10 people there, can you imagine what you have told them? So that could actually mean that the HR manager may not allow you to come inside. Some people too, when they send the questionnaire, they send the letter that they are coming to do a study, and the study the study is under the auspices of this particular person, and the study will be on this issue. So then they will be invited by the HR manager. The HR manager can ask you more for. So they hide the information, and when they get there, they engage with the people, or they will give them a shorter questionnaire, like a brief questionnaire, and attach it, and then say maybe they would like to talk to maybe the marketing manager about the issue, and then they will go so that they can get access. When they are internally there, then they can do snowballing. As they interview, oh, you mentioned that the director of procurement is also can I also talk to the director of procurement? Then they will try to get the person who has helped them to enter book an appointment with the other person with them. Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yes.
So Prof, in this case, which one is ideal?
I'm just telling you, you have to know the organization.
Subjective.
I'm not saying that one of them is better than the other, but what I've been seeing students do is that they do the very simple question letter and they take it. And when they ask them to come, then they go and explain themselves. So the department letter is enough. But sometimes some places are very hard to get into. Like, let me just give an example, like 37. They will tell you to go and bring your research proposal. They'll tell you to go and bring sometimes who is funding the study, and then your ethical clearance. Ethical clearance has to be obtained through the university, and it's a paid thing, and the committee doesn't meet very often. So students, usually MPhil students, I don't know whether it's been emphasized, but the PhD students, you have to collect your ethical clearance. It takes about 3 or 4 months to get it, and you have to pay for it too. I don't know whether the students they waive it for students or they refund the money to students. I don't know, but I know that you have to apply for it. Apply for it. It could be that they waive it for students. But I don't for your own, I'm not very sure for MPhils, I don't think it's compulsory. But sometimes when your issues have to do with children, minors, and then you have to get an clearance from parents or guardians and informed consent, you may need to go for an ethical clearance where they will review all your instruments for the data collection and check whether it's good enough to be able to, no ethics are being breached. Now, what are the ethical issues that come up? There are about 5 of them which matter, or 3 of them, according to the Belmont report. 1, respect for the persons. Requires commitment to ensuring the autonomy of research participants. They can say they will be part or not, or at any point in time, the respondent can choose to walk out of the study, and you have to know that you can't force the person. So sometimes you have to get informed consent. You get a questionnaire for them, a form for them to feel that they are consenting to this. And sometimes it's on the questionnaire, the person ticks. Or before the interview, tell them, please, I'll be interviewing on this and this and this. You don't surprise the person with funny questions that, so which political party are you involved in? And you didn't tell the person that some of the issues will be on some of your personal comments about your political party. Would you want to go? You should have told the person ahead of time. The dignity of the research participant must be respected. Adherence to this principle ensures that the people will not be used simply as a means to achieve research objectives. Like some people, they just want to get their PhD or their master's and go away. They're not concerned about the issue. You also have to be very careful of how much you promise. I was in Agbozome collecting data, and they tell, oh, University of Ghana, okay, come. We know you can solve our problems. You know you can communicate our things to the people in Accra. Hey! So they thought that by me collecting the data, I'm going to Accra, whatever local government office to go and say that these are the issues about misappropriation of funds and things in that particular local government district I was interviewing at Bozome. Can you imagine? And I was telling them that, please, we are just researchers, so we don't even know where to go and report this issue for you. If you don't take it, and I didn't say this at the beginning, I said at the end. If I say at the beginning, they will get up and go. Beneficence or how do you pronounce this? Beneficence requires a commitment to minimizing the risk associated with the research, including psychological and social risks, and maximizing benefit that accrue to research participants. Research might articulate specific ways this will be achieved. Now, this is what I was just telling you. If you're not going to do certain things, be careful. But some of the benefits that you can also help participants, that sometimes there's an issue that you can help them unravel or let them understand. For example, you are trying to look at management practices. By the time you fail, you can realize that where there are weaknesses in the company's issues. So you can point it out to them. Or there's something risk that they are, or some help that they can get. You can point them to there. But you have to be careful how much you overpromise. And number 2, you also have to be sure that, for example, somebody has to cross a river to come and meet you to come and do the interview. Why don't you rather cross the river and go and meet the person? I've done that before with one of the studies we were doing, where we had to, some parts of the northern region, they had to cross rivers to go and collect the data for us. And we told them that we give money to the respondent that you should cross the river. You shouldn't let the people to the interviewer. Don't let the people rather cross and come and meet you in the town square. Or you also appreciate it. You bring people to business school and put them in a room to interview them. You don't give them lunch. You don't give them transportation fare. I saw that in marketing. I was interviewing marketing in Medina Market, and they told me that mentorship. You are interviewing and you don't buy anything. So I realized that when you go, you have to carry money to buy some of the things. But will that one lead to bias? That's just another question. Because the more you are buying, the more the person is telling you. So you have to be careful in case there's some risk involved in persons, like risk of travel and the long journeys to come and interview, respond to your interview. You have to how are you accounting for that? How are you accounting for that? Justice requires a commitment to ensure that a fair distribution of risk and benefits resulting from the research. Those who take on burdens of research participation should share in the benefits of the knowledge gained. Okay. In other words, people who are expected to benefit from the knowledge should be the ones who are asked to participate. Okay, that's interesting. In addition to these established principles, bioethics have been suggested that a 4th principle, respect for communities, should be added. Respect for communities confers on the researcher's obligation to respect the values and interests of the community. This one I respect. I believe it. I believe it very, very, very well. I believe it very well because I remember in Agbozome, when we're doing the study, we realized that the young men who were growing up, they were being trained as a child in blacksmith. But when they grow up and they like living in blacksmith and go and do other professions like doing becoming tailors. So a person has been trained as a blacksmith, but he's interested in tailoring. But the blacksmith, the towels in the blacksmith was the cultural thing that they teach you. But the children, the people were learning the tailoring because tailoring had come a big boom, and WhatsApp was letting people sell to people in Accra. So they put the pictures on WhatsApp, and then people buy from Accra. So they even send the clothes to Accra with the car to Accra, and they collect their money via Momo. So culturally, you see the father is a blacksmith, the grandfather is a blacksmith, the brothers are blacksmiths and stuff, but all of the brothers or something like that, they have left it and they are now doing either carpentry or they are doing sewing. Things that they develop certain things and come and sell in Accra. Because the blacksmith was not bringing money that much, but it's a cultural skill you have to have. Now, such a scenario, I cannot go and tell people that don't let them be training your children in blacksmith anymore. Let them learn straight sewing or tailoring. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So you have to be very careful that you respect the values of the communities. So I don't confer you what you think onto them. Last one, informed consent is a mechanism for ensuring that people understand what it means to participate in a study. And so that they can decide in a conscious, deliberate way whether they want to participate. This is also very, very important. And it's important to informed consent is one of the important things for ensuring respect for persons. Many people think of informed consent as a form, a piece of paper that is true. I mentioned it myself. And that's what I've seen in model research. Divide the piece of paper and the people to have the risk and the benefits of participating in a study, and the people will just sign. But at least you have to let the people understand to establish the trust between the two of you. Okay. So let me go to my rounding up. Okay, so I mentioned that the reason why you should understand the different type of respondents. I mentioned that one. And the different types of data that we're also going to use. Documents are important. Archival records, especially historical, if you need those ones, which are also forms of documents. Interviews and focus group discussions, audio-visual, like social media, pictures, and videos. But sometimes you have to transcribe them or describe what is in it. Participant or non-participant observation. And then physical product or service examination. Service examination is important. Sometimes it can be virtual. You can map out a service and try to look at the map of how something occurs. And somebody's asking, Prof, what do you mean by that? Okay, so in some of the studies that we have done, we try to do a map of how the phenomenon occurs. And it's very, very important because it enhances understanding. For example, look at this, how the car is sold. So you do a map of the electrical flow diagram of it, mapping out how the thing occurs. That's what I'm talking about, a service examination. So you can listen to the people and then draw it out. And then you can be able to identify where bottlenecks are and where information is not flowing very well, in case it's an information flow diagram. But if it's a process diagram, just talking about how resources move, you can also look at where there's resource dependency, and then use it to explain to the respondent themselves. You yourself can even help you to understand where the potential issues are. And you may capture it as part of your study. Okay, so let's look. So this is data display. So you can capture some of the data from the archives of the company or from their documents, like financial profile or how many, the cost of items that they buy, like the phone the person is using, the cost of it, that's a new handset. So they can look at how much or money is running in the business, especially the trader bought the phone himself. And then artifact examination or service examination can capture an image from the website and describe what is going on in the website and how the website helps the company. The same thing is what I mentioned there, capturing a diagram, a pictures diagram, and then mapping it out. Sometimes you may need maps. Maps are very, very important. For example, this is about a study about mobiles and market traders in Nigeria. Now, Gaza is a market and Wuse too is a market. So, no, I think Wuse is the market, and people were moving things from Gaza to Wuse. And there are other parts where tomatoes will come and sell in the Wuse market. So people move the items. And I also added a picture. The picture was to show you that in the Wuse market, the people who are doing the business are the women, they are men. Can you see it? But you see, when you talk about market we all talk about market to men. But market to men, traders are more a gender neutral statement than market to men and market men. Because market to men is not used, but to traders. So the traders can be actually be male. But in Ghana, when I did say it was females. The only part in Ghana I've seen that there's a market on the Cape Coast Road. You see that they sell tomatoes and onions and stuff. I think it's an onion market or something like that. You see men from Mali and other places, Niger and things, selling onions and other products there. I don't know whether anybody knows about it. On the from if you come from Kaswa to Cape Coast Road, does anybody know the name of the market? Ah, okay. It's just by the side of the road.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay. Then, because you are doing a case study and you're going to the field to collect data, with qualitative research, we need the opinions of the people, capture them, because you're interviewing people. So if you present a whole qualitative report and we can't see any quotation from the actual respondent, there's something questionable about your study. It means that you start from one place and just go to the thing and just came to give it to us. We want to see the actual emotions of the people as expressed in their comments. But we are not saying that just copy all the content and just lump it there. It's a story you're trying to tell. So as you write a little bit, you illustrate by showing some of the people's responses. Showing some of the people's responses. So you see that in this particular one, if you look at it, we do that. Look at it. John considered that creating an online retail presence or to support the firm's business processes was critical to the ability to exploit this market opportunity. He explains that the internet research on the used car retail market in Europe gave me a fair idea of how to practically use the internet to effectively market the company in this activity. Though much has been studied through my diploma program, knowledge on what to actually do and which functionalities use was gained through internet research. So it's telling you how internet research helped him. Then occasionally too, you can bring from different respondents. It can't be from only one respondent. That needs the biases that we're talking about. So look at this one. One of the customers, a resident medical doctor, comments that with the exception of weekends, I barely had time to visit a cyber cafe to check my emails. John used to frequently meet up with me in the hospital. This one, I was there when the person said it. I was there when I collected this data, when the person said it. So I remember this one. It was at the now called Rich Hospital. We were sitting under a tree there, just at the ridge of now that they made the place very nice. Some of the trees have been cut. There used to be trees by the car park. I remember we sat outside there and we interviewed this customer of John during the weekdays to discuss options available and my preferences. The car she bought was C180, and medical doctors and nurses liked that cars those times in the early 2000s. The misinformation was related to Braun. This information was related to Braun. Braun is a supplier in Germany. By the weekend, I received details of the car and pictures of the car of interest through my email. I download them and forward them to my fiancé. So that means that the decision making of buying the car was not just about the person who was, the fiancé was helping him make the choice. By the time I met John during the following week, I would have had my questions and a decision on the pictures. This person bought and the father took him to buy. I remember. Then also talking to John once again. So occasionally John comes back again. Then we'll talk to other people too. Then this is about John again. Then Michael was a website developer for John. So please, your different respondents, show them in the work. Don't say that you talk to 12 respondents and only one person you have to keep on showing. I hope you understand me. Show the different respondents in the work. Show the different respondents in the work. Okay. So this is the same thing, direct quotes. Hello. So lastly, so when you finish in the beginning of the study, you do a case study protocol. But when you have finished the study, you do what you call a case study database, a way of organizing and documenting data collected. The case study database includes who you studied, who you interviewed, the case study document, the documents you gained, the statistics you also obtained from the field, and some of the narratives of the questions I get, the snapshots, and the list of respondents per row, and the draft of the case study report. This increases the reliability of the research. We'll talk about reliability and things next week. So somebody will say that, Prof, can you show us sometime a case study database will look like? I can show you an extract, not the full thing. So in my PhD, this is the case study database list of the firms I interviewed. Look at the case firms. I interviewed 3 companies: Lanka Consult, which is the car company, Casadrian, which is Casapreco, and then a fabric and garments company, which is this one. So 15 there, 13 there, 18. Managers, directors, customers, suppliers, all of them make up this number. So this is the number. Then I went to also interview people in the industry. I did 26 interviews and then 20 follow-up interviews. This year in the industry. So if you look at this, I've done a lot of interviews on this area. Now, I think the 26 main interviews were at the pilot stage and the 20 follow-up were at the main study. One of them, I think so. Okay. The 28 interviews to formulate the understanding of Ghana business context. Okay, list of firms interviewed. 28. Okay, and then 22 done in the pilot stage and 6 done in the main stage. Because this one I break it down a bit. The semi-structured interviews were with different people, IT managers and stuff. So ISPs, Busy Internet of Africa Online, Ghana Telecom, the branch. I even can tell you the branch because I know Ghana Telecom is very broad. I can tell you the branch I went there to do my interview. Now, please, interview does not mean that every day I went to your questionnaire. Sometimes I'm just asking for prices of things, so I can go in like a customer. So note that interview does not mean that every place you go for a questionnaire. Please remember, you be wise. If you are not that you want prices of a product, the product prices are already there. You say you went to carry questionnaire. Say, please, what is your prices interview? I'm doing a study for University of Ghana. No. Some of the things you can walk into the place and then get to know. So that you can pretend to be a customer and go and experience it. But for your main study, where the one you're using for your actual work, where you want direct experience, that one you may have to formally send a questionnaire. But the other one that gave you industry understanding about what's happening in the industry, you can even go and talk to people. Even I remember more of the place I collected data from was even sometimes at the barber shop. When you go there, they are discussing certain things about government, and you may pick some points there and go and do a follow-up. Website developers and things, and then IT supermarkets, ICT supermarket, but those who sell computers. Okay. Then the tertiary universities, I interview. Sometimes students don't know that even lectures in the university can be part of your respondents. That's the one mistake I've seen that students do. They don't realize that a lecture can give you understanding, can help you even test your questionnaire. Not just your supervisor, other lecturers in the department. So you can interview them to get a different perspective of the issue. For example, you are doing adoption of technology in the banking industry. This researcher has been writing on the banking industry in the past. You can go interview him that, in your view, what are the new technologies that are coming up? To get insight from a professional. Sometimes some of you, even your own wives, your wife is a professional in an area. You may also interview the person, but you have to interview her role as a professional, not a role as your wife. And one of my respondents is my wife. You fail your work. Please, as in her role as a bank manager or as an employee of Car Bank, that's what you do. You get insights. But she may not be the main data, unless you are doing studies on wives and their husband, then that one she's a main data source. But to get a contextual understanding, you can use, sometimes I know some people even interview their cousins, who your cousin's Bank of Ghana, you're doing something on the banking sector, you can interview him and just to get an idea. But the question is that if you're going to use what he's telling you as a substantive thing, then that's why you have to think about the formality of the issue. But sometimes somebody is adding on, confirming something. For example, the main study was done in Car Bank, and Car Bank said that there's a policy that informs us in how to be able to do our adverts in the marketplace. So when we are doing adverts, that policy guides us in this thing. And go and ask your cousin who is also working at Bank of Ghana. It is true. The Bank of Ghana Act, this tells you that. So you can say a Bank of Ghana employee confirmed that. That's all. Nobody will hold you responsible. But if you are going to say that percentage and this, and even if it gives you statistics and gives you the document, you can use the document. Well, the document may be a public document, but he the one who knows it's a public document. You may not know all the documents. So build a very good story. Right? I remember that Akosombo Textiles in my study, they told me one line. How they use the internet. They said they don't like putting their clothes, their designs on the internet because people pick the designs and send it to China and they go and produce the cloth and bring it. So by the time their cloth gets to the market, there's a version of it in the market. So to be able to solve the problem, they want to do is that they ended up building an integration with the upward integration and downward integration in the marketplace. When they do the designs, they advertise them through some of the celebrities and they do an advert on it. But they have also done it in different grades already. And they have given it to the market women and built a supply chain with the market women that, so as the advert is on before the advert hits, the cloth is already in town. By the time that advert is stopping, another design is coming up. So the women have enough time to say, one, the women have got variety. They've got the very high grade of version of their cloth and the very, very top, the lower version of the cloth, all coming from them on the market. And the women are being given incentives to sell their own first. So by the time you go to China and come back, they have moved from that design to another design. So that cloth, your new stock you bought from China is not, it's a kind of people are not buying that one, but it's out of them, out of vogue or out of style. So what they are selling more is in style. So what is in style is what is style. So by the time you realize, every time they are selling theirs first before the market mutations or the market copies come, or the counterfeit versions come on the market. They are sold, and then they are, because they are giving good credit to the market women. The market women, some of them were loyal to them. The cloth sellers were loyal to them, or are loyal to them. So they sell theirs and promote more of their own. And the market woman will educate you that the China one, if you pour water on it and you wash it a little bit, the color will start crying. And they even do it in the shop for you to show that this is the good one and this is the one on the market which is bad. So this is how I learned this. I all learned from Akosombo Textiles. I learned it from Akosombo Textiles. And I went to the market women to go and check whether it's true. Why? Because Lesdon was telling me something about how they get their clothes and they design their clothes themselves. So I went to the market to check about some of the issues and why some of them don't like putting their designs on the internet. So what am I trying to tell you? We want to know what happened in the field. Don't tell us that you interview people and we don't know who and who you interview. So this is a breakdown. Some of this information can be put in your appendix. Not only this one, but the report. The report is like the report. They ask for the report to end up becoming your questionnaire. So you put it there. But I know some students who also do something else. What they do is that they also, let me see if I can find this thing. I've seen students who do this interesting thing. Good. I found the work. Oh, it's not in PowerPoint. It's not in Word. It's in PowerPoint. It's in Word. It's not in. I just want to show you some things that some students also did. They also show you the responses. I can. Okay, good. So some students also show you the data they collected from the field, as raw as it is, depending on how many people they interview. Look at this particular one from Joyce Kono. So Joyce interview 8, what the person said for this answer. So all the answers, section B, section and this interview 8. All the answers that interview 8 gave me. Interview 9, all the answers he gave me. Interview, this was respondents across a particular, he was comparing some issue. So you're talking to about 13 people or 15 people. He did that. After that, you can then build the themes or do the coding out of it. So look at the leadership questions. So this is what the answers that came from. These are self-confidence questions. And these are the answers that came from self-confidence. So they put them at the back. So she analyzes in the main work, but she's showing that she was actually on the field. Okay. So those of you who want to get A in your work, these are some of the things that you may want to consider doing. Thank you very, very much. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed teaching this. Oh, but have you not taught this one the best time? This is the best way I've taught this ever. Oh, well.
Yes, Prof. I mean, hello, Prof.
Yeah.
Yes, Prof. You are right. I agree.
Interesting. So, class, you can clap for yourselves. We thank God. Okay, so these are the questions that we have. A student is undertaking a qualitative research study. Advise the student on the following. What is qualitative research? How does it differ from quantitative research? Types of qualitative research data. Sampling in qualitative research. Recruitment in qualitative research. Ethical guidelines in qualitative research. Developing a case study protocol. And a list of 10 qualitative research papers. Not necessarily case study alone, but at least 2 of them. Ethnography and case study. A list of 10. It doesn't mean that all of them have to be 10 or 15, 5 of them have to be case study, 5 of them to for you, which number you can get, but for your research area. Then number 2, identify 4 case study papers from the top journals in your field of study. Provide not more than 200 word summary of these cases, just summary of the case. Summary of the case was about what the case is about, and then what what it entails and what is inside. And then identify all the respondents which had to be interviewed to develop the case studies. You yourself try and produce a list of respondents based on the case study that you have read or you have seen in that paper. Sometimes the paper may give you a guidance, but try to develop your own list for each of the 4 papers, each of the case studies that you did. Now this one I'm giving you up to May, the last week, that's May 6th or the week after. Maybe I should give you the week after. The second week in May to finish it. So Obed will upload it online for them. But this is a research question for the exam. So you have to practice. That's why I wish you could have done it early and we can go through it in the last week. So it's up to you. Either maybe we look at it in the last week and people show me what they have done so far, then I can give them guidance on it to know that you are doing the right thing. Then when the exam time is up and you see a similar question, you'll not run away. So don't be asking where is the exam coming from. I'm giving you some of the pointers. One of the questions here is an exam question. Okay. Are you okay? So next week, what we'll do is that now that you have qualitative data, how do you make sense of it? So we'll try to do that next week. We'll start by coding and look at how to code data and then look at how to examine the data that are coded. Okay. Thank you very, very much. Any questions? If there are no questions, then I'm okay. Obed, thank you very much for your support and everything. Thank you. And Alfred too.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last, I hope you enjoyed yourself. You understood a lot of interesting things we talked about. Yeah. I myself have learned a lot. As I was teaching you, I learned a lot.
Yes, we did. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
It's an interesting lecture.
So,
interesting class.
Yes, Prof, it has been.
Don't worry, you get your.
Thank you very much.
Before the exams, you need all the videos, so I'll give it to you so that you can help you for your preparation for the exams.
We appreciate it.
Thank you,
all right, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Doc.
You're welcome.